where insanity reigns supreme, and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists. It's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
A plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
Trying to reconcile how Benghazi was not safe enough for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to go, but it was safe enough to leave a below-spec facility for our diplomats to stay in.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you got to belly up to the bar. It's great to see you back. You have got the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines.
Which was allowed by the State Department.
Wait.
Because I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead.
Yeah, that's right. There's an enemy right there. I'd recognize that voice anywhere. We've got 2 hours of buttery goodness tonight. The first hour is a return guest. It's Captain Ed Enos. And Captain Ed is a Hawaiian harbor pilot, I believe, for the port of Honolulu, to the best of my recollection. He's going to be on for the first hour talking to us about all sorts of things maritime. And for those people listening in from politically incorrect conservatives, and also people listening in from the Big Sarge show and Redcon 1, welcome. This is the first time you will have heard Captain Ed, and he is a great dude. He is a great interview. You will enjoy him. The second hour, let's see. What am I going to talk about? I can't figure that one out.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Well, I'd say that happens to be true. Wouldn't you? Anyway, tonight, Flackbait is going to be your bartender. He pours with the best of them. The lava lamp is, in fact, lighted. And in this view, yes, you can see. It's right behind me over to my left, your right. And that means that you can watch the show on the SHR Media YouTube channel, where I'm broadcasting right now, and also streaming on the SHR Media Facebook page, and also on the Redcon 1 Media Big Sarge page on Facebook. And for those of you who are just listeners and you're, I don't know, cleaning the parakeet cage or washing dishes or something like, or driving a truck for that matter, you can listen and chat. Now, truckers, I don't want you chatting, but for everybody else, you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. I've been away for a little bit. I'll explain that in the second hour, but right now, I want to get into Captain Ed Enos, a great guy. We just called not long ago. So you know me and technology. Let's see if technology works the first time around. Oh my God, I think I heard a phone answered on the other end, which means that it appears at this point that the technology gods, little g, are apparently working for me. So just to confirm, is this Captain Ed Enos?
Hello, Mark. This is Captain Ed. How you doing?
Great. If I had an applause cut right now, you may or may not know Captain Ed, but I would be playing an applause cut right now because seldom does my technology, for whatever damn reason, happen to work the first time that I call somebody on Facebook, on the telephone, whether they call me, etc. So for me, this is unusual. That's how unusual it is. Anyway, folks, let's see. Now, we had Captain Ed on, if I'm not mistaken, the first time you were on was December 11th of last year. So it's been
was it that long ago?
just
Probably
a
was, huh?
hair over 4 months that you've been on, and everybody had a great time there. I might try something different tonight. And now for something completely different. Now, you and I had corresponded over email and on Twitter and messages and whatnot. And you said that you wouldn't be adverse to taking some phone calls.
Sure.
So again, this involves technology, folks. So careful. Be very, very careful. I feel like a Warner Brothers cartoon. Be very, very careful. Wasco wee wabbit. I'm going to give out a phone number, and after we get going a little bit, about 15, 20 minutes into this, I'll give out a phone number, and folks will call in if you have any questions for Captain Ed Enos. I have had you in the saloon before. This is a no politics first hour, maybe a little bit of politics, but not what everybody's used to. Not politics in the exact strict way that most people are expecting. What we are going to feature in the first hour is just plain old American strength, knowledge, and skill. So what I'd like to do is introduce a man doing what I consider to be an incredibly important job that you never really think about, unless maybe you're on a cruise ship or you're in a port and you happen to be watching some of the other ships in a harbor. And except that, okay, when you don't get your cars, you're going to notice it. You don't get your gifts or your oil or your plastics or your electronics, your cell phone, your furniture, your tablets, roofing materials, cement, wood, food, etc. When you don't get those things, you might notice something's going on. So I think you can see where I'm going with this, or maybe you don't, in which case I'd like to introduce Captain Ed Enos, a professional harbor pilot, to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show. So welcome, sir, and thank you for being here for the second time in the saloon.
Well, thanks again, Mark, for having me. I had a good time last time I was here and enjoyed the idea of coming back. I think maybe a good place to start would be answering the oftentimes asked question, what is a harbor pilot? What kind of plane do I fly? And I always have to steer people back to, it's not that kind of pilot. We're like valet parking for ships.
Yes, it is. But before we go there, what I want to do is most everybody these days has social media. And I would be remiss if I didn't give you the opportunity to let everybody know where you can be found, sir, on social media. For example, I know you're on Twitter. I believe you're on Instagram, and where else are you, and where can people find you?
Well, what I always tell everybody is the best place to see pictures and videos that I post all the time. When I'm at work on duty, I'm posting pictures and videos of things that even guys in my industry hardly ever see. And I primarily use Instagram. Instagram's easy and simple. It's accessible to anybody. So Instagram, and my little handle there is Hi Captain Ed. That's all small case, HICAPTED, Hi Captain Ed, on Instagram. And you can find me, Ed Enos, on Facebook as well. And also on Twitter, as you mentioned. Twitter, I use the same handle, Hi Captain Ed. I kind of dabble a little bit more politics there, but there's still a lot of my pictures and videos that I take while I'm at work or around the harbor. I spread around to all my social media, and that's the best place to find me is on Instagram.
I have to say this. I have to interject. I've watched your videos, and I think I asked you this before. You have some great videos taken, obviously, from the bridge of really big, really tall ships. Your videos are excellent. Your photography is excellent. folks, if you are interested in the maritime industry or Captain Ed himself at the conclusion of the show, you gotta go to his Instagram page. It's great. And I have to tell you one more thing. Okay, this is an actual studio, not a house. But you may hear in the background a dog. That's Kona. That's Sackhead Sean's dog. And I had to put Kona in the back bedroom because she was barking and crying even more than I think she's going to be doing right now. So, folks, and Captain Ed, if you happen to hear a dog, that's Kona. It's the dog's in another room, but yeah, just a little bit of an explanation on that. So now that we've covered your social media, there's another thing that you wanted to make sure that got covered tonight, and I think that was a charity of some form, sir?
Yeah, so years ago, one of my partners, and we'll learn more about this, I'm sure, in our conversation as the evening progresses here, but our job's kind of dangerous. Jumping off of a small boat onto a big ship out at sea before the ship makes its entry can at times be a dangerous thing. So years ago, back in 2006, one of my partners, my good friends, my mentor, Captain Dave Lyman, had an accident on the pilot ladder. And in his passing, we all decided to memorialize him. He's one of those really larger-than-life kind of guys. And so we created a website, Dave Lyman, with Y, Lyman, Lyman, DaveLyman.com.
Okay.
And my effort, and along with a bunch of other local maritime industry people and friends and family, once a year we pick one student, one person here in Hawaii, who has left high school and is furthering their career by going to the California Maritime Academy in Vallejo, California.
Okay.
And we support them by helping them with tuition assistance. So the money we raise at a big fundraiser every year goes to one student, and we just picked our student this year. But I would ask everybody, if you have a chance, swing by our website there, DaveLyman.com. It talks a lot about Dave. It talks about a little bit about our industry, Cal Maritime Academy. Got some great pictures and a couple of videos and things. But anyway, DaveLyman.com. Hopefully during the show or after tonight, you guys go check it out and maybe support our cause.
Okay, what I'll do is I have a recap on my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net, of the show.
Great.
And in my recap, I'll make sure that I mention that folks need to go to David, D-A-V-I-D, Lyman, Lyman.com.
No, it's Dave.
Oh,
D-A-V-E.
Dave. Okay, D-A-V-E, D-A-V-E, Lyman, Lyman.com. DaveLyman.com.
Excellent.
Okay, now, you were about to tell us what a harbor pilot is, and of course that ties in directly with what happened to Dave and how he got, how he was obviously killed in the process of doing this. So
right.
it's not an easy job, and we mentioned airplanes before. Well, it has nothing to do with the air and everything to do with the ocean and the water. So what is a harbor pilot, Captain Ed?
So there are pilots all over the world, as you can imagine, whether you're going into a big port like Rotterdam or San Francisco or even here in Honolulu. These men and women, we jump on usually a small motorboat, and we zoom out to meet a ship while they're still out at sea in deep water where it's safe, usually 2-3 miles out in our case. And we come alongside the ship while they're still moving through the water. We jump off the boat. We climb onto this ladder that's dangling down on the side of the ship's hull. And we climb on up, and we walk up to the bridge of the ship. We meet the captain. We have a little master-pilot exchange. He tells us a little bit about his ship, and we tell him a little bit about where we're going. And after that little 5-minute conversation, we basically take over, and we start giving direct orders to the helmsman, or the officer up there on the bridge who's controlling the engine and all that, and working with the captain. We take the ship into the harbor and put them safely alongside the dock. And in our case, and most other pilots, we're using a handheld VHF radio, and we're talking to the tugboats that you always see that are kind of escorting the tugs in to push, pull, or spin us around, or push up alongside of a dock. You can imagine if you're a Greek captain on a ship that's owned by a South Korean company, and it's your first time that you're visiting China, and you have no idea where you're going. You can't speak the local language, and you've never been there before. And so how do you take your big tanker or your cargo ship into a place where you just have no idea where you're going? So the purpose and the function of a harbor pilot is for the safety first of the port and the ship and the crew and the passengers, and then ensure that everything is done safely and efficiently, and that no accidents happen, and nobody's hurt. Things are moved along. If there's any delays or problems or issues or ship traffic or whatever, those are the kinds of things that we all deal with on board the ship, working with the ship's crew and the authorities ashore and the tugs and the other ship traffic around us. And so, like I said, it sounds, like there's a lot going on. There is. It's a high-risk operation. It always is. But we're there to kind of make sure everything goes safely, smoothly, efficiently, and get it all done. And again, that's done not just here in Honolulu, in my main port, but I work with my partners on 4 different islands and 7 different ports. So we do a little bit of traveling around, riding some ships. We sometimes fly back and forth, move around quite a bit. It's always a little different thing. You never know.
Well, the other thing that I want to emphasize is, yes, let's say you're the master of a huge container vessel, and for whatever reason, this is the first time that you've entered Harbor X. The other thing that I think is applicable to this is, because this is your job and you do it every day, you know all the little teeny idiosyncrasies about Harbor X. You know all about the tides. You know all about the timing. You know all about the currents, when they're strong, when they're not so strong, the way to put in a particular ship, large, small, depending upon the tonnage. So when they get a harbor pilot, yes, they're getting somebody that knows how to navigate the area. That's granted. But they're also getting somebody who has an idea of just what the nuance is in terms of each and every individual port, because obviously no 2 ports are the same. Would that be accurate, sir?
Oh, yes, sir. So as a good example, like I said a moment ago, we work on different islands at different ports, and throughout the year, I mean, as you can imagine, the weather changes, the season changes, so there are certain times where some ports are pretty challenging to get in and out of, and other times when they're not that hard at all. But yeah, that's kind of the whole point. You're taking on board a local expert in every sense of the word to help you get your ship into the dock safely and efficiently and all that. I would never do my job. I would never dream of going to, say, San Francisco Bay or Long Beach or New York Harbor. I mean, I understand ship handling. I can drive the ship. But I don't know anything about those places, and I couldn't do my job somewhere else. Nor could they come here and do my job. So it is very unique in that I'm an expert at where I work and what I do on the ships that come here. But that's kind of the whole point. I have an idea of what's going on when I go somewhere else for a visit. I often go and ride with pilots at other places that I visit around the country, around the world for that matter. I always enjoy doing that, and I learn so much, but I could never do that. That's what those experts are there for, doing where they live and work every day.
The other thing that I think I'd like to point out is the fact that there are, again, X number of major ports in the United States and all around the world that can accept a certain amount of tonnage for ships. So people, especially in the United States, being a harbor pilot is a rather exclusive club. That having been said, kind of like Deadliest Catch, you're involving the sea. You're involving massive 100,000-plus ton ships moving in different directions in a body of water. It is physically demanding. It is physically dangerous. Boarding a small bobbing ship, boat, depending upon the time of year in a port, onto something that is a lot smoother, but is not stopping for you. These ships, they're not waiting for you. You have to match speed. There are many variables that go into that mix. So being a harbor pilot is a rather exclusive club. I just happen to have in front of me, oddly enough, some of the things that you feature as a harbor pilot. You've been working for 22 years as a harbor pilot. You have 9 years sailing deep sea, the blue water, as a ship's officer. You have 4 years at the Maritime Academy. And let me stop right there. Which Maritime Academy did you go to, Captain Ed?
California Maritime Academy in Vallejo, California, in the Bay Area there.
Okay. And this is what you and I had in common the first time around. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I wanted to attend the California Maritime Academy in the Vallejo area. And it's right in the Bay Area in San Francisco. I used to live in San Francisco for a little bit, and I thought, younger, wouldn't it be cool to join the Merchant Marine, go to the Maritime Academy, and go all around the world? Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to the adventure part of that. And I know why you're laughing a little bit. But it never happened. The only other thing that occurred to me that was in San Francisco, and I think I mentioned this last time around, is there used to be, and unfortunately there no longer is because there is no real submarine presence in the Bay Area in San Francisco anymore. But back in the 70s, myself and a bunch of long-haired, late 60s, early 70s, myself and a bunch of long-haired college scruffians decided that we wanted to walk into this bar that was in Vallejo. It was in Vallejo. We didn't know what it was, but it looked cool because it had this submarine model about 10 feet long or so on top of this building. But it also had the strangest ass name. It was called the Horse and Cow. So we go into the Horse and Cow, 3 ruffians, 3 scuffy, long-haired pieces of crap. We found out about 5 seconds after we entered the bar that it's a Navy bar, and submariners go there, and it was festooned with all sorts of naval and submarine memorabilia. We had a very brief draft beer, drank it rather rapidly, and we made a 180, and we figured today our jurisdiction ends there. I'm sure they're wonderful people, but we don't belong here. And it's gone. It's gone now. It's very sad. I wish
it was there when I was there. I remember that place very well. And to be honest, I've never been in. I know a lot of guys who did go there, and a lot of guys who went there kind of like regularly, but I've never been there. But I remember that place. I remember that sign, that name. I remember seeing that model on the rooftop there. You drove by it all the time when you're driving through Vallejo. And that's people that might not know. Mare Island Navy Shipyard was right around the corner of Cal Maritime.
Yep.
It isn't there. Well, the shipyard remains there today. It's a privately owned yard. But when I was at Cal Maritime, it was a virtual ghost town. But the good news is it's sort of resurrected itself. It's a working, active shipyard now. And so I imagine a lot of those kinds of places in Vallejo are doing well economically and are busy and, serving the surrounding community. So that's a good thing.
Vallejo has boomed. It's really sad because there was a serious military presence here. I used to see subs and used to see sub-tenders and a couple of destroyers, et cetera, and now you just don't see any of that stuff at all. But besides the Maritime Academy, you spent 4 years at the Maritime Academy and 4 years at sea working on charter boats, tugs, research ships, and yachts. So let me relate this to folks. Let's see, we got about 5 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. Being a harbor pilot like Captain Ed Enos is, in my estimation, very similar to being an actual pilot because you don't just walk into the job. So what are some of the things that you had to do to become a harbor pilot? What was your journey?
Well, it's different everywhere. That's another unique aspect of the job itself. So in any place you go to, there's different requirements or qualifications. But the short version is for most pilot groups around the country, around the world, is you obviously have to go to sea. You've got to get a pretty broad experience of working on ships and or tugs. And in most cases, you have been either a captain of a ship or at least you have that license or a tug for a minimum number of years. And so you had to, in my case, graduate from Cal Maritime. You go to work, working on ships out at sea for about 2 years as a, quote, third mate. You come home eventually. You sit for a bunch of new exams. You take the next level of exam at the Coast Guard that kind of regulates what we do, and you become a second mate. 2 more years at sea, then you take another exam as a chief mate or first mate, and then 2 more years at sea, and then finally you sit for your master's license, your captain's license, which in our case allows me to be a captain on board any size ship anywhere in the world, and which is pretty common for most pilot groups around the country. So now I have the license as a captain, but all the while, all those years I was going to sea for about almost 8 or 9 years, I was also riding as an observer with the local pilots here throughout the Hawaiian Islands. And in doing that, I had to document all those trips, a minimum number of trips at all these ports, day and night, on big ships. And then with each port that I had to get approved for, I had to sit for an exam, draw out this chart purely from memory and take a bunch of written questions and answers and get them all correct. And then on my license, I had this endorsement saying, okay, now you're licensed to be a pilot in Honolulu and over in Kauai and Maui and Big Island and all these 7 ports that we work at. After getting all of that, I had to sit for a competitive exam with a bunch of other guys to get the job that I have now. And that was another, battery of tests one day where you go in there and they ask you about the weather and the harbors and the charts and just all kinds of stuff, ship handling and all that. So I know some people have this thought that, well, if your uncle's a pilot down there, you'll get that job. But if you don't know anybody, that you'll never get a job as a harbor. Those kinds of situations are pretty much non-existent today. I think there's some bit of nepotism in some groups around the country, but it's becoming more and more of legally a very competitive entry type arrangement where it's you're going up against a bunch of other guys, and many people today sit for the exam 2 or 3 or 4 times before they actually get in. And so when you talk to or meet or you're working with a harbor pilot on most ships and most harbors around the world, you're pretty much working with somebody who it was a long haul just to get there. And then they have to train. Once you pass the test, you pass the competitive test, you're the first person on the list. They bring you in, and now you're starting all over again as a new trainee. And that training, like here in Hawaii, for example, takes another 4 years. I have to go riding around with all these other guys who are telling me how to do it and where not to go and how to do this and that. So it's a long commitment to get to this job to be what I'm doing today. And that's true pretty much anywhere.
My guess would also be that it's very regional, that because within your training is on the Hawaiian Islands, therefore your training, like you indicated before, you would not be a qualified, certificated pilot on any other place. Or would you? Once you have that certificate, can you walk into another harbor and then with sufficient training, you can be accredited for that harbor as well?
Technically, yes, you can. The Coast Guard allows for a way for you to go to another place. Like, let's just say, for example, I go to Seattle, and I do a minimum number of trips in and out of Puget Sound between certain places. After documenting all that time, which takes time, all these trips, after doing that, then I walk into the Coast Guard Regional Exam Center, and I say, here's my paperwork. I want to apply to sit for this test. And they look at it and go, okay, sure, you can now take the test. If I pass that test, then I, in turn, can get a Coast Guard certification for those areas. But, again, that takes so much time that few people actually do that unless you're working there, like a ferry captain or a tug captain in that area. But ordinarily, once a guy is a pilot in one port, he's pretty much staying there, and he's not going to invest any more time going somewhere else.
So what you're saying essentially is that's a career decision.
It is, yeah.
So once you've made that decision, you can pretty much bank on that's where I'm going to be for whatever the rest of my career is going to be as a harbor pilot. That's what I've chosen.
Yep. you're investing your own time and money to do all these observation rides and travel around that, San Francisco Bay Area, for example, Puget Sound. You're catching cabs, shuttles. I mean, it costs money and a lot of time to do that for no guarantee whatsoever you're ever going to actually enter into a training program to become a pilot anywhere unless you pass the test that everybody else has taken and beat everybody else out for the number one spot. So it's a big commitment.
Okay. Folks, we're talking to Captain Ed Enos. It's time for a break. About 5 minutes, we're going to come back. When I come back, I want to delineate, or I want to have Captain Ed Enos delineate for us specifically what kind of vessel does he handle. I'm sure we're talking about commercial vessels. We're talking about foreign vessels. Are there any instances where Captain Ed would handle a private vessel? So I've got a ton more questions about what his job is as harbor pilot, about the maritime industry, and a whole bunch of branching questions from there. So, folks, you're listening to myself. I'm the Bloviating Zeppelin, right here live and direct on the SHR Media Network. We're also talking for the first hour to Captain Ed Enos. He is a harbor pilot in the port of Honolulu on Hawaii. And I want to tell you, if you go to his Instagram page and look at some of his photographs, he's got great photographs. Great videos. You can find him on Twitter. Hi, Captain Ed, CAPTED. Hi, Captain Ed. So we're going to be right back after this. By the way, in almost all of those photographs and videos, if you ever see him, as you would expect, way cool shirts.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California from the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios. For the first hour, we are talking the entire hour to Captain Ed Enos, who is a master harbor pilot for the port of Honolulu in Hawaii. My first thought is that would be a great gig. However, if you were listening, one of the first things that you should take away is that it involves a hell of a lot of time, a huge commitment. You have to invest in yourself. You're going to invest a great amount of time, energy, and some of your own money, it sounds like, to find your home, your place to work. Now, that having been said, I'll get to some questions. And by the way, Captain Ed Enos, is it okay if some folks call in with some questions?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay. They'll call in just a little bit, but one of the first things that I wanted to ask is, you mentioned commercial vessels and foreign vessels, and you're certified for just about any size, if I'm not mistaken, and you're accustomed to maneuvering and handling ships of, I would guess, at least 100,000 tons or more. My guess would be that you see them rather commonly, large container ships.
Yeah.
Would there ever be an occasion where, and somebody in chat asked me this question, would there ever be an occasion where you would helm a military vessel?
Yeah, we do it all the time. So you may have heard there's this big military exercise that the Navy has here every other year. It's what do they call it, PACREM. It's Navy ships from all over New Zealand, Australia, up to Alaska, China, Japan, everywhere, as well as American ships, and they all go in or out of Pearl Harbor. But there's such an overflow some years that some of their ships will come over, usually coupled to Aussie or French ships that come up from Tahiti, and they'll tap over here in Honolulu Harbor at Aloha Tower. And so they'll stay here for 3-4 days, a little R&R time before they go out, do their exercises and all that. And there's also a couple of U.S. Navy ships and occasionally some foreign ships that will be coming to some of the neighbor island ports as well, usually in transit, just, again, R&R. And so, yes, we go on board some Navy ships that come to the civilian harbors and bring them in and out of the harbor as well, like any other harbor piloting job. All the ships that are going in and out of Pearl Harbor, there are 4 federal employee-type civil service guys that do just that harbor over there. They do everything from aircraft carriers, Aegis cruisers, and submarines, and they do all that stuff there. I've ridden over there. I've watched those guys. I've done trips over there. It's very different. It's a very different kind of job, but, again, it's unique to them.
Would there ever be an instance where, I'm guessing due to the size of the vessel, that you would ever be involved with a private ship, someone's private ship or yacht?
Oh my gosh, yes. We get, we just had a yacht that left here. We get a lot of yachts. Again, as you can imagine, going across Pacific. Usually they're heading south to the South Pacific or north after leaving that area seasonally. We probably get maybe, I don't know, I'm just guessing 1 or 2 yachts a month, big yachts. We just had one leave here yesterday. And I've been on board some, well, the one that first comes to mind is looking at some pictures. It was a yacht called Octopussy. It's 475 feet long. They had a crew of 75 people, 2 helicopters. I don't know how many boats. I mean, it's humongous. It's bigger than some of the cargo ships I've used or been on. But yeah, we see them all, that are just passing through. And they're typically coming in, as you would expect, to get, fuel or fresh food or give the crew a break, on a trip. And more often than not, because people always ask me, more often than not, the owners are never around. The boat's in transit. Nobody wants to go on a long trip, across the ocean. They want to show up when the boat's there.
Right.
But they don't want to go on a long, miserable trip. So the crew are usually by themselves. But they're really interesting jobs to a point. That's really a different kind of lifestyle. I've never done that. I've seen enough to have an idea what it's like, but it's very interesting. But yeah, we do all kinds of stuff here just by virtue of where we are,
Folks, if you want to call in, the number is area code 209-209-284-3210. 209-284-3210. Once more, area code 209-284-3210. Now, we talked about the great commitment that it takes to be a harbor pilot, but there has to be a plus in this job. So what would you, well, like I said before the break, you wear some cool shirts at work. I have to say that. So, okay, so maybe that's a plus. But what are some of the big pluses for somebody that might be interested in getting into the maritime industry?
Well, I always tell everybody, there's a lot of great things about this job. One is I'm working outside. I mean, I'm standing on a ship, going in and out of a port in a beautiful place like Hawaii. So basically my job is outdoors. I do a little bit of work prior to and after each job in the office, but, it's an outdoor job. It's an active physical job where, again, there's jumping and climbing and, going up all these stairs and all that. I mean, I'm not sitting at a desk all day. I work with great people. Most of the people that we meet on the ships that we do, especially the ones that routinely go back and forth from the West Coast to Hawaii, most of these guys are people that want to be out there. So they enjoy their job. They've got a great positive attitude. And, of course, we all love our job, too. Most of the people that work down here on the waterfront, this is a really unique place, from the tug captains and crews to the guys on the ships, the people shoreside that support the industry. This is a place to work by choice. And so most people don't have a pretty good, positive attitude about where they're working, the work that they do, and the place that they're living their life, day to day. And that's a great atmosphere to be in every single day. But for somebody who's gone to sea, and anybody out there who's ever spent any time at sea will know that this is true. But I tell everybody that the best part of my job is I'm on board the ship the best day of the entire voyage, and that is when the ship's been out at sea for 2 weeks. What's the best day? The day they arrive in a port. And when the ship's been in port for a few days and they're all dying to go back out at sea, I'm on board for the day they leave. And so everybody, you're the first guy they've seen. They've been out at sea for a couple of weeks, right? You're the first new face they see when you climb on board. And they're all happy to see you. They all want to know what's going on. And, so it's a great atmosphere to be in all the time. I really like that.
There are, of course, some challenging aspects to the job, to being a harbor pilot itself. My first guess would be the actual manipulation of the ship itself. The actual ship handling could probably be a huge challenge depending upon the day, the season, and the weather and the conditions.
True, yeah. The biggest day-to-day challenge, or what makes the job unique, no matter what kind of job you're on or what kind of ship you're on, is the weather. The weather is the thing that, we do a lot of the same ships over and over again, back and forth, bringing all our groceries and T-shirts and computers from the West Coast to here. I see a lot of the same ships, a lot of the same crews, a lot of the same captains all the time. But what makes the job different is every single time that ship shows up, it could be blowing 30 or 40 knots out there. It could be dead flight calm. It could be huge swells in the channel, or it could be glassy. I mean, that's the part that makes the job always different. And it doesn't matter whether you're on a big brand new ship with all the bells and whistles or some old decrepit piece of junk that's on its last leg. It's the weather that always changes things. So that's one of the first challenges. And then the second challenge is, and again, it doesn't matter anything about the ship itself in terms of its age or whatever, fancy fandangled things it has. The things that really cause problems are some kind of mechanical issue, or something breaks, or when you push a button to turn something on, it doesn't work, and everybody's going, well, now what are we going to do? So my job, my training, my experience, and the things that you're taught to do are, what happens if the engine dies? Now what do we do? And that's all part of, what you're supposed to know. When everybody else is panicking and calling the engine, hey, what's going on? You're standing there talking to the tugboat guys and getting the anchor ready or whatever it takes. But it isn't about just doing the routine things day to day. It's when something goes wrong, somebody has to be there to figure out what we're going to do next. And that's what we do.
The other thing that I would consider a huge challenge is I would guess a ship is not unlike a train. I was a railroad buff for a long time in terms of history, and a train at speed can take up to a mile to stop. Well, if you're sitting on the bridge of, say, a 100,000-ton container ship traveling at, I don't know, what would be an average speed that you would travel in the port of Honolulu? 10 knots, 5 knots?
Oh, we're down around 4 or 5 knots, or we bring fully loaded super tankers that come to Hawaii to offload their crude oil at an offshore mooring, but sometimes they have to go to anchor before they're ready to go to the mooring. So we'll go out there 2, 3, 4 miles and jump on board this thing and drive it right up to the reef. I tell you all the time, it's crazy. And we're moving at about maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour. I mean, the last several ship lengths, because like you just said, you have to know all the tricks to put that ship and its anchor right where you want it in a little ring on the chart in a designated spot. And you have to be able to fight the wind and the current or whatever else. But you got to get that thing where it's supposed to go, driving this big brick through the water very slowly and get it right. And maybe there's another guy behind you or downwind of you or down current of you, so you can't afford to make a mistake.
Folks, we're talking to Captain Ed Enos. He is a harbor pilot in the port of Honolulu in Hawaii. At first blush, you'd think that his is an easy job. If you listened to the first part of the show, you would have understood that it's pretty much everything but in terms of training, education, and experience. But here's another question. You mentioned peril. I can't say exactly peril, but yeah, there's an amount of danger and there is an amount of responsibility for your job and massive consequences. When I think of consequences, the first thing that I think of is the Exxon Valdez, when you had a captain. My guess would be Captain Ed is that Hazelwood, yes, is that everything for your industry changed the next day after that.
Oh, yes. Yep. Well, yeah, the accident happened in 89, and by 1990, the new regs kicked in, and it had a huge impact on the industry. But you're right, and a lot of people still have this concept that all those pilots, they go on board that ship, they're not the captain, and, they can do anything they want. If they blow it, they just walk away like no problem. Well, that may have been some true, years ago. That's not true today. And, yeah, there is a consequence. And if you have an accident, whether it's a grounding or you spill oil or you bump a pier or whatever it is, or somebody gets hurt, God forbid, there is a consequence. There's a consequence for everybody. And these days, the savvy, attorneys have figured out that dragging a captain or pilot or everybody else into an admiralty court used to be a really hard way of dealing with any kind of accident on the ship. Today, they just call you a criminal, and they take you to a criminal court. And the standard of the legal bar is a lot lower, so it's easier to get guys for criminal negligence or the oil killed 20 birds or penguins or whatever, and so now you're going to go to jail for 50 years or whatever. So there is a true life consequence in terms of fines and penalties and prison time and everything else. I mean, that's out there in our industry for everybody going around. So yeah, with all the responsibility comes the pain and suffering of doing something wrong. So that's still there.
That brings up an excellent question, because we got about 8 more minutes before the end of the first hour. I think it's important to note the really critical training, education, and then that yields experience that you have as a harbor pilot. But in almost every aspect of high training jobs, there are more jobs than there are people that are suited or fit for those particular jobs. They're having a hell of a time, for example, recruiting folks for law enforcement. They're having a hell of a time recruiting people for pilots in the military aspect and also in the civilian aspect. So I'm sure that something like that is similar with the maritime industry. How is the hiring of people affecting folks in the maritime industry? In other words, is there a problem, or is, you're finding all the recruits you need?
That's a great question. It's kind of cyclical. When the economy's doing well, as you can imagine, there's generally a really good amount of opportunities and hiring, in the industry. And by that, I mean both at sea and ashore. As things kind of downturn, as it did back in 2008, 2009, when all these oil energy sector companies were laying up all their supply boats and oil rigs down there in the Gulf Coast, literally tying them up, a dozen or two at a time because they just couldn't find work, then of course all those employees were laid off. But in general, my answer is that I think our industry takes in as many people as it needs. There's a natural attrition by guys that retire or just don't want to go to sea anymore and they go ashore. I will tell you that a career in the industry in general pays well. A lot of great benefits and all that kind of stuff, but it's not for everybody. It truly is hard work, commitment, a lot of training, a lot of great promotional opportunities. It's a great place to work for women and minorities. Our industry is under a lot of pressure to hire more and more women and minorities. And so there's great opportunities here, but it's hard work. I mean, it's a good paying, good benefit type of industry, but you're earning everything that you're getting. But it's a great place, again, depending on what you're doing or where you're working. A lot of positive things about this industry that I try to share with others to come on board and be with us.
2 immediate questions. I got one from the chat room. People are not interested in being vocal tonight. Either that or the phone line doesn't work, but I don't have any phone calls. But there's somebody in the chat room who asked or observed, and I happen to know that this guy is an attorney. He said, hello, yes, there is a lot of money out there for lawyers. We have some admiralty lawyers who clean up on cruise line damages, shipping contracts, maritime law. The states and federal government can just about close a small country's worth of resources when it comes to the Valdez spill or something similar to the Deepwater Horizon. So the responsibilities and the authorities out there are long, deep, and varied.
Yeah, it's staggering. I mean, you make a mistake, boy. It more than just career ending. I mean, it impacts everybody. I'm in an island, in an island state, so you can imagine if some boat goes aground off Waikiki Beach, and tomorrow morning there's oil everywhere. I mean, the hotels, the airlines, the million people that live on my island are going to be impacted in ways they can't even understand. So that's my job. I mean, we're all out there ensuring that things don't happen as much as they do happen. So yeah, and the attorneys are all out there. That's true anywhere, but in this industry, that's something of significant consequence, as we've seen before.
Well, yeah, if for no other reason than major shippers, it takes more than 29 cents to assemble a massive container ship, so the pockets are also deep and wide. Folks, we're talking to Captain Ed Enos. A couple more questions before we finish up at the top of the hour. One of them is this. If somebody is interested in getting into the maritime industry in general, what's the best thing or the best way for them to kind of get started, if you will?
I would tell them to go, depending where they live, but to go Google these maritime academies. There's one, obviously, in California. There's one in Texas, Massachusetts, and Maine. Just Google, search for, training and education at state maritime academies. That's the best place to get the education that you need in the shortest amount of time with college education and degree and the training and all that experience you need to become a person in the industry. And what's important to know is you don't necessarily have to go work on ships. There's plenty of jobs shoreside in the industry that pay well and are challenging and all those good things too. But you don't just have to go to sea. It's best if you do. You have that experience of being shoreside, but you don't have to. So there's all kinds of stuff. So I would say go Google and look up the maritime training and education in some of these state maritime academies all around the country.
The final question is something like this. Let's talk about the future just for a moment. We got about another 3 or 4 minutes left before the top of the hour. Obviously, the environment is a major concern these days. What a lot of people may or may not know is that many of the large container vessels, ships, etc., are diesel electric, like a locomotive. A locomotive is a diesel electric engine, so to speak. Because the environment is of a concern, and because paying people is a concern, what do you see as a trend or some kind of something that you can identify for the future in terms of shipping? I mean, are we looking at automated ships? Are we looking at autonomous 125, 150,000 ton container vessels or oil tankers?
Yeah, that's a big issue in our industry right now. On January 1st of 2020, the entire industry changes due to new oil regulations regarding how fuel is used and burned on ships all over the world. And so the entire industry, everybody, is changing over the kind of propulsion and fuel that's used on board all these ships in the years ahead, and that's addressing the air quality type issue. And alongside that, with other things that are happening on board most ships, the quote autonomous ship or robot ship or the unmanned ship, that's constantly talked about in that industry. I would tell you, my own opinion is, the people that are creating this kind of technology are the ones that are pushing it out there. The people that are at sea who see the reality of things break on ships all the time. And if you own a cell phone or a laptop or any other kind of modern device where you drop the phone call or your program is frozen, I mean, you can imagine being on a ship and then thousands of miles from anywhere and something breaks and there's nobody there to fix it. So what I tell everybody is there's no such thing and never will be an unmanned ship that will cross the ocean carrying cargo without having somebody on board or 2 or 3 technicians that have to be there to address alarms, broken things, or satellite communication that drops out and now ships are wandering out there all on its own. So I do think there will be some version of that, but there will never be an unmanned ship. It's always going to have somebody on board.
So, folks, you've been listening to Captain Ed Enos. He is a harbor pilot for the port of Honolulu in Hawaii. A great gig. And just like I wanted when I was a younger man, 40 plus years ago, I thought this would have been a great gig for me as well. It just wasn't in the cards at the time. So, Captain Ed Enos, tell us again, please, where your social media is, and if they want to read you or look at some of your videos or your great photographs. You're a great photographer and a great videographer. Where can folks find you
Mark.
on social media?
I just use my iPhone that I carry with me on board ships, and the best place to start is Instagram. Hi, Captain Ed. Some of those pictures all the pictures and videos get transferred over to Facebook. I don't really go on Facebook very much, but that's where you can see my stuff too. And you can look for my name, Ed Enos, on Facebook. You can also find me on Twitter. Same thing, Hi, Captain Ed. And I encourage everybody to visit DaveLyman.com. There are links there that tell all about my partner there, Dave, and the effort that we're doing, trying to raise money to put kids through college and get them out here in the industry, those who can't really afford to do it on their own. But Instagram is the best place to catch and learn. I don't just post pictures and videos. I try to explain what you're looking at.
Yes.
And if you want to learn about shipping and the industry and Hawaii and stuff like that, go look at my stuff. And I posted a video today of a fishing boat that was on fire literally 1 hour before I picked up the phone and started talking to you. It just happened today. I've already got like 2,500 views on it just in the last 2 hours. So there you go.
Very nice. Well, thank you again, sir. I'd like to, maybe in the next couple of months or so, I'd like to have you back and talk perhaps a little bit more in depth about the future of the industry, the environment, what it looks like the future is going to involve, the future of shipping. You and I were having a discussion about a week or so ago about cruise quarters, the design of ships. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to talk to you about. So would you be amenable to coming back to the Saloon, sir?
Absolutely. Anytime, Mark. I always enjoy helping people learn more about who we are, what we do, and our industry in general, and I enjoy the conversation.
Outstanding. Folks, we're going to go to a break. We've been talking to Captain Ed Enos. He is a harbor pilot for the Port of Honolulu. If you were listening earlier to the show, you found out what it takes to be a harbor pilot. Be prepared for a very serious investment. When we come back, something occurred today. I don't know, not really very important, and it didn't catch much attention, but I'm going to mention it to you anyway. Thanks again to Captain Ed Enos. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic, concealed carry, and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here from the SHR, the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios, 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the Capitol building in Sacramento, California, spelled with a K, as you would expect, where late at night, well, you can hear it every day. The sounds, the strangled sounds of common sense dying in the Capitol building at 10th and L in California. And you can also hear at night when I leave via that door over there, I'll open it up and I'll be able to smell the odoriferous stench of sulfur and brimstone issuing forth from that evil, evil building downtown. For the first hour, we had Captain Ed Enos on the show. What a great guy, a great interview, a great guest. We talked about the maritime industry, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And I'm going to have him back on in the future because he is a great guy. What we're going to do now is listen to the Ron Edwards notebook, and then we'll talk about, I don't know, something happened today. I'm not quite sure what it was.
Once again, government school bullies seek to trample on parental rights. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, because of the abysmal quality of government school education, many parents across America have opted to homeschool their children. Homeschooled students traditionally benefit from a superior education and are not indoctrinated against America, God, or free market economics. So, parents in West Virginia are hoping that West Virginia Education Chair Representative Kenneth Mann, a Republican, and his Democrat cohorts, Senators Michael Romano and Ron Stallings, who proposed a law that would prohibit homeschooling and order CPS investigations if parents who had children who accrued 10 absences fails. In fact, the bill would treat homeschooling as abuse in order to increase government control over the decision-making process concerning where West Virginia students go to school, leaving parents out in the cold. This is yet another statist government official attempt to see how much more will sovereign citizens allow them to push forward with their evil agenda to indoctrinate all students. Thus, it is past time for parents en masse to stand up for their unalienable right to seek the best way to train up their children and the way they should go. I'm Ron Edwards. Join me live Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on americamatters.us.
Ron Edwards is a great cat, and I'm going to have him back on the show in the not too terribly distant future. While I was in chat, speaking of chat, I asked Dave Milner to call in because there's something that just occurred recently, and I want to have Dave tell us about it. Dave, are you there, sir?
I is here, yes. Can you hear me through the hood?
Yeah, I tell you what, this is a unique show. Something happened with regard to technology. All my technology appeared to work tonight. I don't know what that's all about, but listen, beggars cannot choosers be, and I'm happy as hell about that. But folks, I've got Dave Milner on the phone, and for those who may not be familiar with him, Dave, give a little background about yourself, because I got a lot of people from Redcon 1 and the Big Sarge Show that are listening, and kind of let people know what it is that you do and a little bit about your show before we get into the announcement that you've got.
Okay, well, I'll be brief because I know you've got to talk about. I think this was the second quarter crop report that came out that some people are excited about. So
right,
yeah,
right. Pig's knuckles.
brief.
Pig's knuckles are going up or down. I can't remember which.
Yeah, large issue. Yeah, okay. My name's Dave Milner. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy. Look at the Unpleasant Blind Guy page at Spreaker.com. That's under SHR Media's banner. I'm also available on the Western Free Radio Network. And I also do a show with a fellow named Jeff Mitchell and a wonderful lady named Jan Rennie, which is called the English Defense League Radio Show. I talk about issues mostly regarding the United States in my show, and on EDL Radio, we talk about issues involving the UK, and we sort of overlap. Now, Defense League,
hang on just for a second. When you're talking about issues, what kind of issues are you talking about? Are you talking about aviation or health insurance, or what kind of issues do you address primarily?
I know, it's just about to get into that. Now, what is relevant to this news? I personally, on my show, do free speech, government intrusion in people's lives, blah, blah, blah. You know, the kind of thing that you would expect for an American conservative talk show, the Unpleasant Blind Guy, EDL Radio, and the English Defense League itself as an organization tries to warn people about the excesses of the ideology of Islam. We're talking about child sex, slavery, and issues of that nature revolving around the issues of Islam and the fact that the government in the UK, and increasingly the government here in the United States, are treating Mohammedans more as first-class citizens. They're not treating everyone equally, and it has become a really, really bad problem. However, a lot of people with a lot of money don't like the fact that there are some people out there telling the truth about Islam, and they have lumped us in. If you go to www.englishdefenseleague.org.uk, you can read the organization's mission statement there. Non-racist, non-violent, none of that garbage. But the people with a lot of money and a lot of influence and who tell a lot of lies have lumped us in with some rather nasty people in the United Kingdom, and they have chosen, Facebook has chosen, to have a little pogrom and disable all of our accounts. And not only are they doing that, BZ, you have the story from chat. This was all over the news in the UK. Not only have they chosen to do that, they're going after people who have anything good to say about any of us. Even those of us who do not have a violent agenda at all. We just tell the truth about Islam. Domestic animal torture done by Mohammedans, and especially the child sex slavery thing. These are the kinds of things that they don't want out there. So there you go. There's a brief.
Well, basically what you have is you've got Facebook that's decided that it's going to eliminate all vestiges of EDL wholesale from any point on Facebook at all. So can you theorize that, hey, maybe that's coming for Twitter, perhaps?
I would guess, BZ, that Twitter will be next because they tend to follow Facebook very quickly. I do still have a Twitter presence myself. It's UBG Contact on Twitter. That's for my show. And I'm also Dave Milner on Twitter. That's a personal. But the good news, BZ, is that there are still a lot of good places left out there. There's, there's MeWe, which is another good place. There's Gab. Gab is a great place. It's been one that people have tried to deplatform a few times, but they're all about free speech. So Facebook is definitely not the only game in town. There's also places like Minds and a few others are popping up. So Facebook may have put a bump in the road when it comes to some of the patriots out there and all of that, but they haven't succeeded in completely silencing us, so they're not going to.
So what is in the future for you then regarding EDL and Facebook? So you're not going to be found on Facebook anymore. That's dead. That's gone for EDL.
Right.
But it still doesn't have anything to do with your show. Your show is still going to be on. You're still going to be talking to Jeff, I would assume, and other people and guests on your show. That remains completely and entirely unaffected, correct?
Correct. Right now I'm doing a 6th anniversary special where, and honestly, this is one of the few times you'll hear me be this complimentary about one of my own shows. It's awesome. And I encourage people to go and listen to it. And starting on Saturday, I'm going to do the show. I'm going to begin running a show again that made me want to do a show in the first place called The Way Back. It's about preserving our founding documents and our founding principles for future times. It's almost like prepping. And I really encourage people to listen to that one and pass it around. And in the future, BZ, I'm going to try not to take up too much more time. Once I come back from a little vacay, I will, you'll hear some new promos here on SHR Media.
Great.
And we'll be running SHR Media promos over at blogtalkradio.com. That's where you can find the English Defense League radio show. And we'll be merging our shows a little bit. I'll still be doing pure Unpleasant Blind Guy shows once in a while, and I'm going to keep everything under the Unpleasant Blind Guy banner. But for the most part, Jeff, who has view health problems, has asked me for an increased amount of help. So I'm going to kind of merge our shows a little bit. And if I can work things right, BZ, people are going to get something new pretty much every day. So, looking forward to that. And that will be coming in, let's say, May.
Okay.
There they are, man.
All right. Excellent. Dave Milner, thank you very much. One last time,
Thank you,
final
sir.
plug. Where can people listen? When and where can people listen to your show?
They can still always listen to my show. There's always going to be something at the Unpleasant Blind Guy page at Spreaker.com. I'm also available through YouTube on the SHR Media page. And I can be heard on the Western Free Radio Network. And, again, I would like, before I let you go, man, I'd like to wish everyone I'd like to ask everyone, please be careful because the Mohammedans are going to be going after Christians this Holy Week. So be vigilant, but also be prayerful, be grateful that you live in the United States of America, and be blessed. And I want to thank you, BZ, for giving me this few minutes to talk about this, sir. Have a wonderful Easter weekend.
Thank you very much, folks. That is Dave Milner, the Unpleasant Blind Guy. Okay, yes, he is blind. No, he's not that unpleasant, as you well heard. Now we're going to transition over to the final portion of the show, and something did, in fact, occur. And what I want to play now is there was a press conference today. And this press conference has been highly anticipated for, let's just say, the past, I think it's 22 months, and $25 million has passed. And I summed it up on Twitter and various forms of social media by saying something similar to, What we had essentially was a $25 million nothing burger. I wrote on my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net, that the release of the Mueller Report, 422, I think, roughly plus or minus pages that were released today. And there was a press conference that was given by Attorney General William Barr. So I'm going to play the press conference because I want you to hear, folks, completely unexpurgated what it was that William Barr said. And I want you to understand that if you were to listen to nothing but CNN or MSNBC or any of the other American media maggot offshoots, you would have thought that it was Attorney General Barr who wrote this report, and further that he has a forked tail, he has horns, and he's going straight to hell. By God, William Barr is the worst politician, except he's not a politician. He's the Attorney General. But to listen to everybody on CNN and blah, 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 you know, the 24-hour Tibetan bell-ringing channel on DirecTV gets more hits than CNN does these days. MSNBC's Rachel Madcow, her ratings have plummeted. Isn't that amazing? When the 4-page summary came out about 2 weeks ago, her ratings about Russian collusion, because that's all she had was Russian collusion, her ratings are in the tank. So the American media maggot industrial complex has to figure out some way of making and continuing to keep itself relevant. So now it's all about Barr evil. Well, I want to play this because this is the DOJ news conference that occurred this morning. And this is when Attorney General Barr issued the report, the Robert Mueller report, with various redactions. And people on the left, the leftist Democrats and American media maggots, were demanding that there be absolutely no redactions to that whatsoever. Well, you can't do that because there are classified issues that are involved. There are also people's names from various grand juries and people who should not be named that are not directly involved in this, but were investigated in a sort of an adjunct fashion, if you will. But no, we've got to have this damn thing revealed. No redactions whatsoever. Well, that shit's not going to play. That's simply not going to play. The reason I want to play the news conference today is because if you were listening to CNN, etc., you would think that the way they're portraying this, William Barr wrote this terrible, nasty report, and Robert Mueller had nothing to do with it. When you hear the news conference, what William Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, is referring to are Robert Mueller, his words as special counsel. At the end, there may be a little bit of a tete-a-tete and a kerfuffle, but this is the official version of William Barr having his news conference. And today was, of course, Mueller Report release day. And the conference occurred, I believe, at about 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 a.m. Pacific. So BZ wasn't up.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for being here this morning
to watch this.
As you know, on March 22nd, Special Counsel Robert Mueller concluded his investigation into matters related to...
Now, one thing I want to point out, that's A.G. Barr who's speaking at the podium behind a Department of Justice logo. To our right is Rod Rosenstein. I want to let you know Robert Mueller is not present, but Rosenstein is, in fact, present.
Russian attempts to interfere in our 2016 presidential election, and he submitted his confidential report to me pursuant to department regulations. As I said during my Senate confirmation hearing and since, I'm committed to ensuring the greatest degree possible of transparency concerning the special counsel's investigation consistent.
And the funny thing is that as far as the American media maggots were concerned, there was no transparency. There's so many issues with this. So many issues with
the law. At 11 this morning, I'm going to transmit copies of the public version of the special counsel's report to the chairman and ranking members of the Senate and House Judiciary Committees.
Okay, stop right there. That was enough right there to send those chairpersons into PSH mode, which it is pants shitting hysteria mode. Did you understand what he said? He's having a press conference and informing the American public of certain bits of information. This is a 22-minute press conference, so it's not like it's going to take another hour. But he had the temerity to have a press conference prior to giving the full version to politicians. Oh my God, the PSH was thick.
The Department of Justice will also make the report available to the American people by posting it on the department's website after it has been delivered to Congress.
By the way, go to bloviatingzeppelin.net, bloviatingzeppelin.net, and, go to my Twitter feed, @BZEP, @BZEP, and you'll find the site there where you can go directly and read the 400-plus pages for yourself if you're looking for, a nice way to relax and fall asleep tonight.
I'd like to make a few comments today on the report. Before I do that, I want to thank Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein for joining me here today and for his assistance and counsel throughout this process.
I think I called him Robert.
Rod, as you know, has
Didn't I
served
call
at
him
the
Robert?
department for nearly 30 years
Rod.
with dedication and distinction, and it's been a great privilege and pleasure for me to work with him since my confirmation. He had well-deserved plans to step back from public service that were interrupted by my asking him to help in my transition. Rod has been...
Okay, did you just see what happened there? Did you just see what William Barr said? Rod Rosenstein is about to step out of public service. What do we know about, as time goes on, I've mentioned the tip of the iceberg syndrome. What are we discovering as more and more documents come to light, more emails come to light, etc.? What we're discovering is that more of the people like him are directly involved with this. And what has Barr said over the past weekend, for example, that again has sent more people in D.C. into abject PSH. He said essentially, I think it's time to investigate whether there was actual spying of a private citizen, meaning Donald Trump, by these massive, massive alphabet agencies like the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA. And so if you wonder why John Brennan et al., James Clapper, James Comey, are going 210 over 190 about this thing, they're hearing footsteps. They're hearing footsteps.
An invaluable partner, and I am grateful that he is willing.
And Rod wants to go away. This is not coinky-dink.
To help me, and has been able to see the special counsel's investigation through to its conclusion. Thanks, Rod. Thank you. Yeah. I'd also like to thank Special Counsel Robert Mueller for his service and the thoroughness of his investigation, particularly his work exposing the nature of Russia's attempts to interfere in our electoral process. As you know, one of the primary purposes of the Special Counsel's investigation was to determine whether President Trump's campaign or any individual associated with it conspired or coordinated with the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. Volume 1 of the Special Counsel's report describes the results of that investigation. As you will see, the Special Counsel's report states that his quote, investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities.
Stop. Did not find information to indicate that there was criminality involved. Period. End of statement. Trump-Russia collusion. End it. That ship has fucking sailed. Now, let me ask you a question. We will come back to this. Obviously, we're going to come back to this. But I have to pose this question to you. As far as the LDAM are concerned, leftist Democrats and the American media maggots, do you really think that ship has sailed?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m., here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. I am BZ. I'm the bloviating Zeppelin, and I'm broadcasting within the SHR Media Studios. Earlier in the first hour, I happened to have Captain Ed Enos, who is a harbor pilot from Hawaii.
I remember Captain Ed.
On the air. And Captain Ed is a great dude, and we talked about all things maritime. And he went into the trials and tribulations of being a maritime dude and a harbor pilot and all the training, education, and experience that he has in order to be able to do that.
I'm a bottle pirate.
It was
a pilot. You said pilot?
Pilot.
My bad. I got
Pilot.
it all away. That's all
pirate.
wrong.
Yeah. All right. Oh, wait. This is the worst. Unless you have another one. What is a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
Okay. And why are pirate jokes so bad?
Why?
Because they are. Okay, enough of that. Anyway, folks, if you don't know him, miss him, love him, you gotta love him. His mom loves him. My mom would love you if she were still alive. Clint loves you. Dan Butcher is in chat. He loves you.
Tolerates.
No, I think it's really it's kind of a love thing. I didn't mention this earlier, but great folks in chat all along. Simone, Iggy Mom, High Plains Pundit. It's Dan the Man Butcher. The Alaskan, Dave Milner, White Mamba, and one viewer. At one time, I had about 5 or 6 viewers in there, but they all kind of dissipated.
That Dan Butcher is the second best newsman in the business.
Why? Why only the second? Who's the... Okay, that begs the question, of course, who is the first best?
Legally obligated not
newsman?
to talk about it.
Okay, so you have a sort of a shameless contract, not unlike BZ?
It's actually very much shameful. But yeah. You know what's funny is, I have to point this out really quick. The angle that this camera's at now, I haven't sat in this chair for a while. When I originally set all this up, I put it a little bit lower, right? So the guy with the side profile issue said, no, we can't have it lower. I have to move it higher.
I wish I could play that. Because if you remember the show, Clint didn't like that.
Yes.
And Clint actually got out of the frame.
Which was worth putting it there again.
Oh, God. He moved out of the frame so that he could readjust the camera. And as he readjusted the camera so that it wouldn't, you could have no profile. Okay, that's... I don't know if there's enough light for folks to be able to see that, but Sackhead Sean is
now
indicating a profile.
A follically challenged individual does not like this camera angle.
However, now from over here, from where I'm looking at the screen over here, the top of your head, because of the lighting, is dark.
Oh. So I'll take it.
I'm saying that's kind of a mitigating process for you right now, and it's covered by the headphone.
I'll take it
and things like that. Okay, so we were talking about overall Sackhead Sean, because you haven't been here for a while, but that's all right. What the hell? Neither have I. Any thoughts about what happened today?
No collusion
with
no collusion.
A.G. William Barr, who is the root of all evil. Just
according to the
ask
left.
Anybody
on the left.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. The Mueller report, I think intentionally sets it up so it's a punt to Congress to go any further with it.
Oh, there are a bunch, yeah.
Because he knew when he was closing it out that he's going to have at least a House that's sympathetic. So he punts a little bit to Congress, third and long. He had nothing. So instead of just closing the door, and Mueller, listen, we all know Mueller is a dyed-in-the-wool leftist.
He's Jimmy Comey's best friend.
Right. He couldn't prove anything with all of these resources, all of these agents, endless. Couldn't prove anything. So what does he do? Instead of coming out and closing the door on it, in saving the nation, he comes out with a punt. So he could have come out and said, look, there's no collusion. There was no obstruction. We never asked him to testify, so he didn't obstruct there. We had no other real... We're not saying that like there wasn't some hinky things. Okay. But I hate to say what presidential election doesn't have something that maybe brushed up against an edge. Look, you still have Hillary, who was clearly colluding with Russia.
God.
And the Steele dossier and all of that. Let's just throw that the fuck aside. We're talking about as you say, the man with the dead orange cat in his head.
Yeah.
The reality is Mueller had so little, but couldn't close the door. Why? Because he's an operative. He's a leftist operative.
Well, and look who he. Well, do you think Mr. Mueller stacked the deck at all in terms of attorney?
No. And look, Trump knew going into it because, he was quoted as saying, this is the end of my fucking presidency. And I don't think that's because...
he said, I'm not going to be able to get anything done. That is true.
Well, it's been abundantly true because you've had two things. Because of the Russian narrative, no truth has been pushed about what he has done that's been positive. You never hear about the economy. You never hear about anything that he's done that is good.
No, can't.
There's no time for it.
Wouldn't be prudent.
And Mueller couldn't allow that to just end. The left couldn't allow it to just end. So what do? They leave it open to a punt. And you see leftists all over the place like, well, he didn't say there was no obstruction, just not enough to prosecute. To which I turn around and I say, so there's no probable cause.
Yeah, see, that gets back to... I guess, folks, you could have the rule of law in the United States. Or you could have something great like what France has or Mexico. You could have Napoleonic law where you're guilty...
Until you're proven innocent.
Until you have to be proven innocent.
And I've been trying to explain to people all day on the left. I'm like, you have to understand how our system works.
And they
Look,
don't.
Mueller is essentially a detective in this situation, right? That's what his job was supposed to be. He's supposed to be a detective. Yeah. So, BZ, you have a couple years with a badge on you. What's the first step to investigating a crime? What's the first thing you need?
Well, first you need to find a criminal, identify a criminal, and then make sure that you can get any kind of a crime and then pin it on him. First, You're going to make a criminal
I'm going to make it
out of somebody.
More simple.
Let's identify an individual, and then let's make sure that we pin some kind of a crime on him, any kind of a crime. Isn't that the way it goes?
I'm just going to go basic law 101. Actually, 001. Okay. This is pre-law. Okay. You're walking down the street, or you see a guy walking down the street. You're a police officer. You're in a bad neighborhood. It's dark in the morning. And he had high crime area. He has no reason to be there. Can you just get out of the car and stop him per se? I'm not going to talk stats and your knowledge of the area, but just black and white, probably not. Nowadays, right? You can articulate it. We can have that discussion. But I'm talking cold. You're new to the neighborhood. You don't know the crime stats. You don't know if this guy belongs. Blah 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 blah. More often than not, the answer is technically no, unless there's other mitigating circumstances. But you can't just stop. Now, you can talk to him all you want.
Oh, sure.
But I mean a custodial stop.
Right.
You can't just walk up and do it for no reason.
You're talking kind of about the triumvirate of...
Threshold inquiry.
A police officer never loses the right to speak to anybody in a you always have the right to speak to someone in a consensual fashion.
Absolutely.
Then you have the second prong of the triad, which is reasonable suspicion. And then the third that you develop is some kind of probable cause.
The first step, though, is the threshold inquiry.
Yes.
So the reason outside of consensual that you're talking to this person, that doesn't mean you can't develop a threshold inquiry while talking to them consensual, but I'm talking about the initial, hey, come here, I need to talk to you.
And yes.
You've been lawfully detained. Threshold inquiry.
And that's where you're waiting to see.
Is that person arrested, charged, and convicted right then?
Where things are going. You're going to wait and see how this
you gotta
develops.
You got to have a reason, right? So even if you have a reason, the guy's walking down the street and he matches the description of a guy wanted for a burglary. All right, now you have a reason. Hey, come here, I need to talk to you. Okay, we're playing a game. Or even more so, the guy flicks a cigarette, you stop him for that, And then you start having maybe evidence of a potential burglary. You have burglarious tools, maybe, depending on whether or not your state allows burglarious tools to charge. But, you know, you could have...
I like that.
What?
Burglarious.
Yes, it's a great word. I've always loved it. He could have a couple credit cards on him. You don't know, right? So initially you're like, hey, you're not allowed to go anywhere. You're detained. I'm conducting an investigation. Mueller is at that point where he's handed all of this for kind of a threshold inquiry and says, hey, I'm conducting an investigation. Now, is that guy with the burglarious tools in his pocket, is he under arrest? No.
No, of course not.
It could be his mother's credit card. He legitimately could be a mechanic, so that's why he has 2 screwdrivers, and he works late at night. He's coming home. No, here's my shop. There's the address. Go check it out. I live 2 blocks away. My mother's ill. I have her credit card. You can call her. Here's her phone number.
Yeah,
it all checks out.
Yeah, and my car's not working, so I'm walking
home.
Late
Yeah,
at
I
night,
left the screwdrivers. I was stuck in the garage late. Whatever. But okay, there's no crime committed. It didn't look good at first, based on training and experience and understanding it. But that doesn't mean now. Is it possible that maybe he's got half a joint in his pocket? Well, in most other states, that could be something that you could work with.
In California, they'll buy it for you.
Right. But what I'm saying is Mueller had his threshold inquiry. He had all this information given to him, carte blanche. Here you go. So many Fourth Amendment rights didn't even apply, essentially, because all the information's already out there. It was already in his hands. He didn't have to get warrants for stuff for the most part. It was already there. The FISA court gave the warrants. He had carte blanche to do whatever he wants. So even with all of that,
and the scope increased and increased and increased and increased.
That's the other thing too. I always tell everybody, look, if I'm investigating Joe for this crime A, and his buddies are hanging over there, I have to be able to link A to B before I can say to one of his buddies, hey, come here. Now I need to talk to you because you're being detained. If there's no mitigating circumstance, if there's no reason for me to connect them, if I can't articulate why I'm talking to his friend now, it's going to get thrown out. Even if his friend has 15 dead bodies in his trunk.
Well,
but not with Mueller. You can just start going wherever you want. So he kept going.
And there was no one to tell him no. There was nobody
to tell him no. And when the president hinted, hey, maybe time to tell him no, oh my God, you can't do that.
The world turned upside down. But you can't even hint at that.
I see so-called lawyers on air right now saying, well, even though he wasn't charged, he didn't rule out. Look, I'm sorry.
Either we have the rule of law
or we don't. Yes.
It's not complicated, folks. Look, it's not compli-fucking-cated.
How many times have you, as a peace officer, walked away from somebody going, yeah, they're probably guilty, but I can't prove it?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you could say that. But does that mean that in his file for the rest of his life, his legitimate arrest file, it says probably guilty, but unable to be proven as part of his criminal history? No. There's no entry because he's not arrested and charged. Or if it was thrown out, arrested, charged, but dismissed. Why? Because you didn't have the evidence to get the conviction. There's no conviction. He didn't do it. You can't say.
And that's why you go back to the original statement of Mueller punted, and here's what I think happened. Comey set a dangerous precedent by opening his trap when he shouldn't have. What?
Dave, sir, you have a half a joint in your pockets. My duty now to provide you with half an ounce of Fry Cents a Million.
Yeah, see,
and
Dave.
Welcome to California, Dave.
Dave, wasn't I correct? Yes. Yeah, eventually, we'll be obligated to purchase that joint for that guy. Oh, God, my brain is going in so many different directions.
I love the chat room. I do. But this is where we are. They're trying to intimate now that, he may have done it, but we can't prove it.
Okay, and then that's where that stops, because if you cannot prove it...
It's basic law enforcement. And the other thing, too, that people seem to forget, Donald J. Trump and anybody who works for him does not have less rights because of his position.
No, nor does he, as people are attempting to intimate,
more.
He doesn't have more, nor does he lack the ability to respond verbally and in writing to people that are making accusations of him. Oh, presidents can't do that. Presidents can't. Blow me.
But
yeah, they can.
He's still a human
and it's
being.
A different day.
And I hate to say it, but he is a human being who, for the last 2 years, has been dragged through the mud. Been called everything from a traitor, treason, liar, but it has yet to be proven.
Name one aspect of working in the White House that hasn't been obviously, in many ways, working against him.
Yes.
Leftists, his own party,
everybody,
the Democrats, the
media.
American media maggots, social pressure, the
pussy hat
pressures,
wearing sons of bitches.
The pressures on him are stupendous. I think normal people would have faded from that, but he's not a normal person because he is a pugilist, and he's from New York, and he fights back.
All you're doing,
and he leads with his chin, and people don't like that. So why all the hatred against Trump? They hate him personally.
Right. Well,
the bulk of it is personal, and the damn thing is, he's successful.
Well,
he's making good on a number of his campaign promises.
I don't think they hate him personally.
I think it's
well, now they do.
I think,
but I think up until he's pushed back, they all loved him because he had money, he had influence. They needed that when they were just regular politicians. It wasn't until he became president and wouldn't play ball.
And when they discovered that he was made of way more Teflon than they ever surmised.
Yeah.
And not only did he not crumble and wilt like a Jeb Bush or a Mitt Romney would have, I'm so sorry about that.
This is my fault.
You know, who's the guy, Buttgig, that apologized for, he said initially, all lives matter. And then he was taken to task in social media.
Yep.
And I meant to say Black Lives Matter. No,
Right.
all lives matter, Buttgig. You had it right the first time.
I've learned since then. I've become educated. I've become enlightened.
Right.
So here we are. Mueller's punted it back to Congress. And you now have a House of Representatives who will absolutely show up tomorrow and vote that he's guilty of something. We just don't know what. If they could.
I want to play the rest of that interview. But there's also, if I can find it.
Chat room's feisty right now.
The chat room is really going well right now. Okay, here we go. This is a great article by a guy called, there are only a handful of actual journalists left today. John Solomon, who writes for The Hill, is one of them.
I do like John Solomon.
And this was an article that he
Dave
wrote. I'm
brought
sorry,
up a
go
good
ahead.
point, too. And they've thrown out how many times that he's a racist with zero proof?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. If anything, the proof's been to the contrary.
No, that's a story for another day, and that story is developing, and it's developing rather rapidly, which is why I say footsteps. But essentially what I said in the promo for the show is, what we have is proof, definite proof, of a $25 million nothing burger.
Yes.
That's what we have. Anyway, from The Hill, John Solomon. He says that he's got a list of what he considers to be the 10 best questions now that could turn the tables on the Russia collusion and the investigators. And let me see if I can go down to that. Now, folks, as I read these questions, try to formulate what you think is going to be the answer or what is a possible answer to these questions, because sooner or later, I think the leftists and the Democrats are going to have to craft some kind of an answer to this. The first one is critically important. When did the FBI first learn that Steele's dossier was funded by the Clinton campaign and the Democrat Party and written by a partisan who, by his own admission, was desperate to defeat Trump? Okay, that's the personal aspect. Documents and testimony I reviewed showed senior DOJ officials Bruce Orr first told his colleagues about Steele's bias and connections to Clinton in late summer of 2016. Likewise, sources tell me a string of FBI emails, some before the Bureau secured its first surveillance warrant, its first FISA warrant, raised concerns about Steele's motive, employer, and credibility. Now, what's the answer going to be to that one?
Oh, from the beginning.
Yeah, it will be.
the beginning.
Yes, and just as he indicated there, yes, this predates the FISA warrant. This starts right around the time that I believe all the Republicans say, okay, well, all right, it looks like, okay, it's Trump. That moment, that's where the focus went, and that's the time when it started. The second question is, how much evidence of innocence did the FBI possess against two of its early targets? Yeah, go back. Okay? Because we did see that Mueller, he handed down indictments and got sentences for what I consider to be crimes of process, insofar as those individuals would not have been under the focus, the glare of focus, had they not gone there initially. So those
I'll go a
crimes
step
would not have
further.
occurred or been involved.
I would say a crime of process and technicality.
Well, yeah, same thing. Technicality, process. Did we get further? In other words, were we illuminated? Was illumination provided to that investigation when we decided that we're going to gig people for lying to the FBI?
And you look at those people who are charged with the crime of process, and you go back and you immediately go to the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine.
Okay, you just big-fitted my entire show, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I already,
This isn't the first time I've done that.
no,
either.
no, it's true. Well, since you opened up that door, let's walk through it.
Okay.
The reason that people, I believe, are encountering PSH, what I call pants-shitting hysteria, is that the information now is mostly out, if you're halfway willing to digest it and see it in front of your face. That at this aspect, in terms of Russian collusion, yes, everybody indicates, and I may or may not play the rest of that press conference, but the information indicates, yeah, the Russians were involved in attempting to hack the election.
With the
but no,
Democrats?
it wasn't just the Democrats. They tried to get into the Republican servers. They tried all kind of bad guy malfeasance.
Well,
to
and
have
they-
any kind of influence.
They
And
buddied up with Hillary a couple years earlier, knowing she was going to run.
And it was also discovered that they were partnering with Facebook,
yes,
knowingly, and Facebook bit as well.
I also go back to the Uranium One deal. I go back to Hillary, and I go back to they were moving with that deal when they thought she was going to be president, when she was then Sec State, and that they were beginning to cozy to her then, because how much money did the Clinton Foundation make out of the Uranium One deal?
Right, and how much money is the Clinton Foundation making these days?
Right.
Because they cannot provide the influence and the power and the prestige that they once had.
I want to go back really quick, just for a lot of people who may be like, what the hell are they talking about? Fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine is a rule within criminal law where if you, essentially it says if the tree is poison, then everything that falls from the tree is poison. If you make a misstep and or an illegal act during an investigation to obtain evidence, then anything from that point on is no longer admissible because of the misstep and or illegal activity. In other words, if A is no good, B, C, D, and E, F, G, H does not matter, with the exception of the per se law with DUIs, because that's the most important thing on the planet.
And where does that lead? That leads directly to the FISA warrant.
Yes.
And Sean's point is this. The point is that if it's determined, which is why no one wants to go back and investigate the FISA warrant, and my guess would be the FISA court doesn't want that either, because FISA is equivocated. It's the equivalent, I should say, of, like grand jury in a ham sandwich. It's embarrassing enough for the FISA judge and the series of judges because they had to go back every 90 days and renew that. So not only did the FBI and the DOJ...
And remember that FISA judge was hanging out at fundraisers with these FBI agents.
Not only did they pull that bullshit once, but every 90 days in terms of a renewal, they continued to pull that bullshit.
While this guy
on a
was
FISA
showing
court.
up at social events with the FBI agents who were submitting the FISA warrant. By the way, White Mamba pointed out in the chat, they were hoping that Trump was going to incriminate himself through that perjury trap thing that they go for, and they lost. And I agree with that as well. But go on.
Well, that's true. But the fruit of the poisonous tree is this. If it's decided that they're going to go back and examine if Barr... Because now, what did Barr say that caught everybody? The leftists and the Democrats were shitting car parts over the weekend when he said essentially that
full of great calibers.
Did you believe that there was spying? Well, and then they had the word the spying, surveillance, blah blah blah. And he says, yes, I believe that he was spied on. Now, is it definite that it was unwarranted? I don't know, but I'm gonna look. Mm-hmm. Now, if it's found, as you indicated, that the FISA warrant, which is the root, the stem, the poisonous tree from which everything else flowed, you have to go back to that original point. If the information that you submitted on that affidavit and submitted it to a FISA court, and as far as the judge knows, the judge has to assume that on that affidavit, you forswear, the judge assumes that you're telling the truth.
Or, if the judge is at social events with you, he's more likely to believe that you're telling the truth, even if he's not dirty. Look, and when we talk about the FISA judge himself, he may have been the most by-the-rules guy going, but he's socially involved with the people submitting the warrants.
And he's a human being.
And he's a human being, and he has reason to believe, based on professionalism and training and experience and laws and rules and all this other stuff, that they're following their rules, and what's being presented, as you said, I forswear, is accurate and truthful. Is it possible that he knew it was bullshit? Yeah, it's totally possible he knew it was bullshit.
Okay, so...
But they never thought Trump was going to win, so at that point, they were already in oh shit mode anyways.
And that's where the warranty comes from.
Yes.
That's where Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were saying, hey, we have a backup plan here.
By the way, I hope Willem Dafoe plays Peter Strzok in the movie.
Oh, wow. Oh, by the way, today, if you haven't seen it, folks, you need to go back into YouTube or video, whatever the hell it is, and look at the tete-a-tete that I watched on Martha McCallum between Trey Gowdy and Peter Strzok. Oof. Oh, that was fiery. But go back to the fruit of the poison tree. Who were the first persons that got caught up in this particular web? Michael Flynn, Stephanopoulos, and that geeky dude who was an abject zero, Carter Page.
Yes.
Okay, but if these guys were directly involved, and that's who they're saying were initially involved, they were involved, why didn't we get anything coming down in terms of Russia from Carter Page or Stephanopoulos? And now we have crimes of process, etc.
Right.
And I think Flynn basically took one for the team. Look, folks, it's 2 minutes after 10 o'clock. This is my damn show, and I'm not going to break for anything. We're going to continue talking, so we're going to go into overtime because this is kind of a monumental event.
Yeah.
And when I have Sackhead Sean in the studio, Andy's my boss, and he says that he's going to change my contract if I don't allow this to continue, then I listen to my boss. Fruit of the poisonous tree, the initial people that were involved in that goes back to question number 2 from John Solomon of the Hill. 10 questions that need to be answered. The second question is, how much evidence of innocence did the FBI possess against 2 of the early targets, the ones we were talking about, Trump campaign advisors George Papadopoulos and Carter Page? My sources, John Solomon's sources, tell me the agent secured evidence of the innocence of both men
early
from informants, intercepts, and other techniques that was never disclosed to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Now, what do we know about laws? What do we know about warrants? If I'm in possession of exculpatory information,
have to present it.
I must also include this information as well. It's not an option for me. If I know of something that will tend to lend credence towards X, I cannot omit that. That is a purposeful omission from the application, the affidavit application here, and Solomon is indicating that he has credible sources indicating, that exculpatory information, that was kind of left out. He says, I'm told learning exactly the sort of surveillance used on Page may also surprise some people. I found that to be a very interesting, let me read that again. Solomon says that he was told that when we learn, if we learn exactly the sort of surveillance used on Page, it's going to surprise a lot of people. Okay, question. Is that one of the reasons that some of the information in what was released today was redacted? Because you're not going to reveal sources and means.
Yes.
And the Democrats want everything unredacted. Well, there could be also, I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Do you want my 2 cents on this?
Do you want the names? You're sitting on a grand jury. Sackhead Sean. So Sackhead Sean is sitting on a grand jury. Do you want the rest of the nation to know that Sackhead Sean, by name, was sitting on a grand jury? He has privacy rights. That should be redacted.
Or do you want the rest of the nation to know that the federal government has the ability through FISA warrants to turn your phone on at any moment as a listening device?
Yeah. That ability,
I 100% believe that's exactly what was used.
Exists.
Yep. And we know it exists because it's been caught by the companies that own them. It has not been caught per se by the federal government using that information. We know they use it to track terrorists. We know they use it for a lot of reasons. But
Alexa,
to spy...
Alexa, tell me, blah, blah. Siri, tell me, blah, blah, blah.
Don't say the other one.
Okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, because all sorts of things are going to happen.
You have lights going on and off, and things will go bad.
But it's not... It's not a one-way street, folks.
I think the means is going to be the issue that really wakes people up. I think the means is going to be the issue that shocks more people than anything else.
We're on the cusp of a lot of revelations here. Some of the revelations being that we're going to begin to make causal linkages between technology and what has occurred to these people in ways that you've indicated and John Solomon is indicating. We as people are not putting these things together, and the technology is way ahead of us.
Yeah.
Technology is way ahead of the societal implications.
I have a feeling.
And this is one of them, I believe.
Carter Page and maybe Stephanopoulos, there was an area activation on their phone where it began recording everything from their phone when they were within a certain parameters and location. And that they had access to it. Believing, or at least under the guise of, well, we thought they were meeting with Russian agents. We wanted to hear the Russian agents. Nobody goes anywhere without their phone, folks. Nobody.
No, that's the way things are today.
Have you ever, most people, I'm not talking about the Dave Milners in the world, most people leave their house. If they forget their phone, keys, or wallet, it doesn't matter. Almost always turn around and get it. It's been a proven fact.
Now, just because Sackhead Clint carries a phone is no guarantee that he knows how to use it, except to make phone calls.
He's posing.
I should like to point that factor out.
Even the fact that he's making phone calls, sometimes I'm a little suspect that somebody else isn't doing it and handing him the phone.
But he wants to look good by carrying the phone. Because when you carry the phone in his world, that is another credible way of making him look important.
Yeah, very important. Okay. 2 phones, actually.
Oh, hell yeah, 2 phones.
Phone A, phone B.
Yeah.
Doesn't know how to use either one. So I think that's going to be the bigger shock. I think when everyone knows the technology is there, but to attach it to such a major investigation, and how many memes there are right now about people with their computers talking about their FBI agent that watches them. Like, I sneezed the other day and my FBI agent on my computer said, "Bless you. He's such a good guy." That joke's always been out there for a long.
And the one from Twitter where a guy is sending a tweet to another, and
the FBI agent,
and he says. And I need to let them know that they're coming over. THEIR. And the CIA or the NSA responds and say, "Jimmy, that should be THEY''RE." We laugh. Comedy is funny because it contains elements of truth.
Well, but we've always, I think that most people say, "Oh, you know what, though, they don't use that often, or they use it overseas, or this or that." I don't think they understand the gravity of how easily activated it is. than the Stingray systems of 5 years ago.
Oh, the Stingrays, theoretically speaking, and I know that my department has them, and they're not supposed to use them. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. They still exist, but they're yesterday's technology.
Nothing. You don't even need to be in the same area code anymore.
Those are for people who cannot afford the technology available to the CIA and the NSA.
And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And then eventually they're going to be like, wait a minute. If they're going to do this to this guy and the president, I think that's the other thing, too. You may find out that Donald J. Trump's phone itself was subject to activation.
Back up, folks. Back up. What was Donald Trump before he was inaugurated January 20th?
President-elect.
He was a president-elect, but literally he was a citizen. He is a private citizen.
Yep.
So think about this. These things were occurring to a private citizen. If our alphabet agencies couldn't give one fuck about invading the privacy of a citizen who has the potential to be the president of the United States and rain all kinds of holy hell potentially down upon these agencies, do you folks think that they would give one dribbling reticle fuck about
you
tapping you
even
for
more
any reason
so
whatsoever?
Even more so, I'll push it a step further. Not only was it just he as a private citizen was investigated, I would argue that the alphabet agency that investigated him was weaponized, and all of this stuff was done to try to keep him from becoming president.
Well, and again, do what BZ calls the logical extension is, and we'll get to the rest of these
Stingray
questions.
Attack subs, I love it. That was awesome.
Is to, and I don't remember if this is in here, but where does this ultimately lead? Well, let's find out. Let's go through the questions. Number 3, why was the Steele dossier used as primary evidence in the FISA warrant against Page when it had not been corroborated? FBI testimony that John Solomon reviewed shows agents had just begun checking out the dossier when its elements were used as supporting evidence, and that spreadsheets kept by the Bureau during the verification process validated only little teeny-weeny pieces of the dossier, while concluding other parts were patently false or unprovable. And of course, former FBI lawyer Lisa Page admitted after 9 months of investigation, the dossier's core allegation of Trump-Russia collusion could not be substantiated. That is way before
Mueller. Let me ask you a question. 42 years of law enforcement. Just going to throw this out here. You conduct an investigation. Somebody says to you, hey, that guy you're investigating, I have proof that he killed 15 people. Do you rush and get the warrant before you find out if that lead pans out?
No, usually what you do is, let's say,
go right to the courthouse.
You go right to the courthouse.
Fill that affidavit out, raise that hand, and go arrest the guy.
Or you go
hope.
You go find somebody and clear them of any linkage to that crime before you really even conduct the investigation. I mean, that's the way you go. Right?
I'm just saying.
Oh, that's right. That's the way that it occurred with Comey and the FBI.
But not how it's supposed to have occurred.
Funny. Isn't that how that happened? Here's question number 4. Why were Steele's biases and his ties to the Clinton campaign, as well as evidence of innocence and flaws in the FISA evidence, like we said, unsubstantiated evidence, and also what is termed exculpatory evidence, why was it never disclosed to the FISA court as required by law and court practice? It's still, Sakachon, does it not befuddle you to think that in that affidavit, I would love to see it. Oh, God, President Trump, please declassify that mofo. I would love to see a sentence in there that makes reference to a Yahoo News story, because that is credible evidence of
all day long.
Oh yeah. Yahoo News.
I want to answer
ultimate
a
source.
I do want to answer a statement from Mumbai. He was talking about how they came across the information. They came across the FISA warrant. They used technology. Blah blah blah. Could also have used a confidential informant not bound by the Fourth Amendment. investigator who knew how to use the technology and is monetarily encouraged to snoop on Trump's team. But that is still a level of spying. And if that person used any government equipment and or was in, say, violation of their Non-Disclosure Act after formerly working for one of three-letter agencies, there's still a whole bunch of illegal activity that goes along with that.
Well, Comey used FBI devices, allegedly after he was let go, to leak the information, which is why I call him Jimmy the Leak. But he used proprietary devices still owned by the FBI. That in and of it, when I was an FBI agent a long time ago, if I used FBI means, processes, or equipment to attempt any kind of a job other than that demanded by the FBI itself, I would there would be an immediate investigation, which would likely result in my immediate firing and possibly even some kind of a criminal prosecution.
Incarceration, yeah. To go back to Mama's statement, too, the other thing, too, is if you get back to that magical person who is doing it on his own volition, all you have to prove is that the government or somebody from the government or otherwise enticed him in any way to do it. They can't plant the criminal seed, but if they suggested, hinted, or went around it, and you can prove that, you can still argue that he was acting on behest of the government because of those statements. And that argument can still be made to push it back onto the government. You can't, as a cop, turn around and say, hey, here's $50. Go see if that guy's selling weed, unless you have a reason to believe it. You can't just blanket do it. But you can go to a neighborhood where you know this guy, hey, that's Bill. We've watched Bill sell something 32 times. Now we need to figure out what it is. That's different. You're building a case. But you can't just blanket go into a neighborhood and say, all right, try from this guy, try from this guy, try from this guy.
Well, and that guy is being used as an agent of
the government.
Yes. Anyway.
Yep. And all you need is one person with credentials to have suggested it or pushed him or even said to him, I'll buy you a beer if, and now he becomes an agent of the government. It's very, very specific when you use confidential informants, what you can and cannot do with them. Now, if this guy was sitting at home in mom's basement, fired and angry or losing his job at the NSA or whatever, and he did all of this on his own and then went to the FBI and say, hey, I found all of this, he could still be prosecuted for a whole litany of different privacy acts, but that's not acting as an agent of the government.
No, that's him with some kind
I bring it back to the
personal
to the burglar. I think it was in Britain.
Burglarious.
Yeah, burglarious tools.
Yeah.
There was a burglar in Britain last year who broke into a house and found a guy sexually assaulting a young child and then beat the bejesus out of him and held him for the police. Because, and he, quote, I'm a thief, but it's something like, I'm a thief, but even that's fucked up, or something to that effect. Yeah, is he going to get charged with the burglary? Absolutely. But the evidence that he presented to law enforcement was legal because he found it on his own. He wasn't sent to break in. So
how do you explain that one to your insurance company?
Oh, there's an even better one about, and I have read the story a couple different times. I obviously, as far as proving it, I don't have much proof other than I've read the story a few times. There's this rather large gay man in somewhere in Britain who two guys tried to break into his house, and he caught them. And they spent the next 3 or 4 days as concubines.
Well, now that's special. Okay, question number 5. Why did the FBI and U.S. intelligence officials leak stories about evidence in the emerging Russia probe before they corroborated collusion? And were any of those leaks designed, this is critical, were any of those leaks designed to create evidence that could be cited in the courts of law and public opinion to justify the continuation of a flawed investigation? Oh my God, that is a critical question.
There's a reason why the FISA warrant gets visited every 30 days. Any new
Because-
information, any exculpatory information,
That's
anything
right.
come up?
That's right. And if you're truthful and you determine, that's the point of the warrant. The point of the warrant is to find out some kind of, or identify some kind of a fact pattern that if it turns out that you're looking in the wrong direction, then why would you possibly want to waste any more of your time? You go back to the FISA court and you say, this affidavit that I acquired has led to this. Here is my return, and here's what I found. I don't need this anymore.
Right. It goes bye-bye.
But this is leading, the questioning is leading to the point of, okay, this is a continuing steamroller effect of we're just creating more shit. And we don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
And to tell me, folks, that the alphabet agencies, the FBI, the DOJ, the NSA, the CIA, are apolitical and unbiased, if you believe
Bullshit.
that, you're a paramecium. You might even be a monomecium. I'm not even sure about that.
Well, but we go back into that. You go back to the FISA warrant. You go back to going back every 30 days, validating the information, making sure it's still current, making sure that there's still probable cause to have that FISA warrant, et cetera, et cetera.
They give you a great extension. It's actually 90 days.
And I'll go back to, I think it was Mamba's statement, or maybe it was the Alaskan, but somebody said something about, they were hoping to trap Trump into saying something to incriminate him because through natural entrapment laws, you can't plant the seed of criminal activity. You can water it, but you can't plant it.
Well, that's what you do as a federal prosecutor anyway.
Right.
Your job is to use people, wring them out, toss them aside to get to other people. It's no more complicated.
And they've put
than
themselves in that situation. But you can't go to a bar, say, hey, I'll give you $500 if you go out and stab that guy. And then when he stabs that guy, says, all right, now you're under arrest for stabbing that guy. You can't do that.
No.
The criminal seed needs, the intent needs to already be there. The attempt needs to already be there. That's like when the FBI arrests all these guys with the fake bomb stuff. These people were actively seeking to obtain bomb material that the FBI intercepted. The FBI wasn't going to mosques and saying, hey, anyone here want to blow something up? And somebody would raise their hand and be like, hey, come with us.
Well,
No.
that's like the standard line about composition. Not only do we get certain people that will sing for us, but they'll compose.
Right.
They'll compose anything
that
we want. And it's absolutely
But you also have
glorious
to
when you have
validate the information.
Yes. Let me ask you a question, Sackhead Sean. I think this is critical. I know what my answer is. In one way, do you feel sympathy at all for Michael Flynn, Papadopoulos, Cohen, Manafort, and somebody else got caught up in all this crap?
Yeah,
in some way,
I
I have to tell you, I don't.
Well,
and here's why. Now, I understand what's
know-
going on in the
I know-
brains of these guys,
Well-
but you cannot lie to the FBI, particularly
Okay.
when they're looking to gig you for lying to them.
All right, so let's hit the giant timeout button for
They
a second.
created that themselves.
Yes.
I
don't feel sympathy.
Yes,
but the fact that
I
they
have to say that though as a caveat to the fact that they got hoisted on a bunch of bullshit.
Well, the fact that they were drawn and quartered before there was any allegations, and then they were forced to talk, and as a result ended up lying. Up until they lied, I did have a lot of sympathy for them because they were all just kind of doing what they were supposed to do. They were doing their job, mostly legal. Now, again, these crimes of process. I didn't dot the I. I didn't cross the T. It wasn't like, ha, 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 I'm going to go out and take over the government. Most of this stuff was like, oh, hey, you know how on line 32B you were supposed to write A, B, and C, but you wrote D, E, and F? Even though you should have wrote A, B, and C, and you probably knew you should have wrote A, B, and C? Yeah, 5 years, federal pen. Boom.
Yeah. That having been said, I also must say that these guys were hung out to dry because who's the brother of John Podesta?
Yes. I can't think of his name.
I can't think of his name either, but he did the exact same thing that Paul Manafort did.
Yes.
He didn't register, et cetera, et cetera. So this is so political.
Well,
It's patently, wholeheartedly.
And you can even have the argument specifically with the Manafort one of not registering. Look, he could have thought that his lawyers registered. Or maybe he was told, we were supposed to register and we didn't.
There are some logical assumptions that one could make when you're dealing with an attorney, that you just hope that your attorney is working and sufficiently accredited, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's go on to...
They won't make a mistake.
Number 7. Did the CIA... Tony Podesta, okay.
Thank you, Alaskan.
Thanks, Alaskan. Appreciate that. Thank you. Number 7, did the CIA, FBI, or Obama White House engage in activities such as the activation of intelligence sources or electronic surveillance before the opening of an official counterintelligence investigation against the Trump campaign on July 31st, 2016? The answer is...
yes.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Well, and so what does FISA stand for, BZ?
Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, but it's a court that has...
that was created in order to deal specifically
whose job
with this.
Specifically deals with FISA requests.
So at what point did they... And I say this because, look, they found out the Russians were contacting both and trying to interact with both campaigns, right? We know this. The FISA court was activated with belief that there was Russian interference. However, it's amazing how many Americans got caught up into this.
Yes, but we also have to back up and consider, just as people are considering this with Trump right now, who was in charge at the time? The Obama administration.
Oh, absolutely.
So who was responsible? Folks, is there anyone out there that doubts in the slightest that you have a molecule of doubt that Barack Hussein Obama was unaware of what was happening?
No doubt.
With the DOJ, with the FBI, with his beloved James Comey, and with his lovely, who was the...
Loretta Lynch?
Loretta Lynch.
I'll go a step further. I bet dollars to donuts that since World War II, the Russians have tried to intervene in every single election that we've ever had.
Yeah. And we've interfered in elections.
Oh, yeah. No, the Obama administration did it in Israel, previous election.
Yes, and Homeland Security did it in the election in the state of Indiana under then Governor Pence. But they attempted to infiltrate an election system.
But I will go...
from Homeland Security.
I will go, just throw that aside. The federal government under Barack Hussein Obama tried to intervene in an Israeli election against... by the way, a close ally. And not an unstable country where you're trying to topple it, Venezuela type thing.
Yeah,
where
the dude wasn't Noriega, okay?
Right. Just because he didn't like him. And he was trying to push an agenda throughout a reason.
Well, he liked the Palestinians. He just didn't like them damn Jews.
Right. Well, he didn't like Netanyahu because Netanyahu's unapologetically Israeli. And he didn't like that. So we intervened. People forget about that. And this isn't a third world country where we're a banana republic. This is Israel. By the way, if you want to know why it's called a banana republic, it has to do with elections and the Dole Foundation. Is it Dole or Chiquita?
No, I think it was Dole.
Dole, yeah.
Yeah.
But either way.
Okay, not Bob. Not Bob, okay, folks. I want to make that abundantly clear.
Not Bob. Not Bob Dole.
Not Bob Dole.
Bob Dole doesn't like Bob Dole
Bob,
jokes.
third person Dole.
But yeah, so who's to say that they won't do it in our own election? And like I said, I would love to sit down and go through everybody in the Obama administration. Hey, did any Russian agent ever try to contact you during the election? Obama administration, George W. Bush administration, go back to Clinton, Bush again. I'm sure maybe even the Reagan administration that the Russians tried.
Oh, without a doubt. Okay, here's question number 8, and I think this is also almost equally important, but pertinent. Did U.S. intelligence, the FBI, or the Obama administration use or encourage friendly spy agencies in Great Britain, Australia, Ukraine, Italy, or elsewhere to gather evidence on the Trump campaign, leak evidence, or get around U.S. restrictions on spying on Americans.
Well, and so this brings me back to
Unmasking?
the whole...
Hello?
Yes.
Unmasking?
Absolutely they did.
Yes.
This brings me back to the whole... look, if the FBI came across the Trump administration during a legitimate investigation of the Russians trying to influence the election, okay. If they came out and said, hey, you know what, we did have to tap their phones, we're not going to act, that's election-based, it has nothing to do with us. If we didn't hear anything involved with the Russians, no one will ever hear from it, we did nothing with it. We were just verifying the integrity of the country, how the Russians were, okay. I can understand them trying to do their job to protect the election against all enemies, foreign
and domestic.
Fine. But when you start activating allied countries, when you start activating intelligence, when you start looking the other way on Steele documents and stuff like that, you are now an active participant. And the focal has changed from, are the Russians trying to, is there any way we can connect the Trump administration to Russia and not connect the Clinton administration to Russia all at the same time? It was weaponized. The FISA court was weaponized. The three-letter alphabet agencies was weaponized. Where was it weaponized from? The top. Because that's the only place you can weaponize it.
Yes.
The FBI agent in Salt Lake City, Utah, cannot weaponize the top echelons of the FBI and the CIA. It does. Oh, by the way, the CIA had hands in this, folks.
Oh,
it does not
God, yes.
fucking happen.
Look at the visage of James Clapper.
Yep.
Liar. Look at the visage of John Communist Brennan. Liar.
Yep.
Here's question number 9. Did the CIA or Obama intelligence apparatus try to lure or pressure the FBI into opening a Trump collusion probe?
Yes.
Or acknowledge its existence before the election?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Text messages between alleged FBI lovebirds Stroke and Page raised concerns about, quote, pressure from the White House, the, quote, agency BS game, DOJ leaks, and the need for an FBI insurance policy. And as Stroke texted at one point in August 2016, quoting a colleague, the White House is running this.
What?
Okay, wait a minute. Now, if I had a producer, what you would have heard is this. The White House is running this. But I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. Are we ready for question 10?
First, I do, but I also want to point out why I love the chat room at SHR Media.
Okay.
I know we're answering some of the questions. I know you guys are sending out it.
I can love it too. Can I love it too?
No. I know you guys are putting a lot into this conversation, and it's really intelligent and really well thought out. I'm trying to add in when I can, but for those who are listening and not participating in the chat room, you guys are missing out on its own like second show. If we could like do a show of just like the chat room, somehow.
Oh yeah, we still got over 10 people.
And
in
I
the
don't
chat
mean
room
vocally.
right now.
I mean to be able to read it. I think that would be pretty impressive because some of the shit that's come out of this chat room tonight has been amazing.
These are typing mofos.
Yes, they are.
So, by the way, the Shat show is going to be here next Wednesday.
I heard.
I just want to let everybody know. Question number 10.
Yes.
Did FBI agents, intelligence officials, or other key players in the probe provide false testimony to Congress? Yes. McCabe already has been singled out by the Inspector General for lying about a media leak to an internal DOJ probe. And evidence emerged this year that calls into question Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson's testimony about his contacts with Orr. All of them are excellent questions.
His wife, you mean?
Oh, yeah. Good old Nellie Orr, who brought the information over to good old Bruce.
Yes.
And then, see, that came from many directions. That dossier came from many directions. We must not forget that it also came from John McCain.
I just want to point out how incestuous all of this is.
It is an incredibly incestuous
Like, here's the Steele dossier. That's from Fusion GPS. That's Orr.
Octopus of
Orr's wife
incestuous
was part of
behavior.
this investigation, and she worked here. And wait a minute, Strosk and Page, they worked here, and they used to go to this event with the FISA court judge on a regular basis. And don't worry, I'll see him at the next fundraiser. And then this and that. Folks, if you want to talk about collusion, if you want to talk about conspiracy, I know, God, I remember going into the last election when all of this was coming out, or after the last election, before the inauguration, when it was the three of us talking one night on the air, and you and I were saying this was a soft coup. This was a soft coup.
I will never, ever doubt that. I said it then, I'll say it to this day.
And I'll tell you right now, you remember Clint arguing with us that it couldn't be a coup because of the technicality? That he wasn't in office yet. And in order for it to be a coup, he would actually have to already possess the power. And I just laughed because I was like, and he was being the contrarian, but he was also being serious, too.
He was attempting to inject a little bit of seriosity into it.
Yes. And I kept saying to him, that's all you got. No. The simple fact of the matter is they were trying to destroy a duly elected official.
Because they knew where he was going.
And they know the skeletons.
They knew the arc of where that path
He was eventually
going
to know where all the skeletons were buried and who buried them there. And they were afraid of it. It was a soft coup. And I'll tell you right now, any action that occurred after the inauguration, from a second the inauguration had till the end, was a viable soft coup.
It falls into that category. You know what? Let's have a little bit more fun. Let's continue with the press conference from William Barr.
I am sure that all Americans share my concern about the efforts of the Russian government to interfere in our presidential election.
We knew that.
As the special counsel report makes clear, the Russian government sought to interfere in our election process. But thanks to the special counsel's thorough investigation, we now know that the Russian operatives who perpetrated these schemes did not have the cooperation of President Trump or the Trump campaign.
Stop it for a sec.
Or the knowing assistance of any other American for that.
Yeah.
By the way, have we bombed the Kremlin yet?
I'm going to have to go back and check my notes to see if that's in the schedule.
This is more evidence of a country trying to destroy another country from the inside than I think they've ever had in the history of wars.
Well, you didn't have the tools available. The tools were much more overt back then. But yes,
I'm just saying
they
have
are tools of
the Russian
war.
Government actively attempting to disrupt our election, which I'm not saying had never happened before, but now we have all of this evidence. We just had a 2-year special counsel to prove that the Russians tried to hack and influence our election.
And that doesn't stop with Russia.
One Tomahawk missile.
That continues with China.
One Tomahawk. That's all I'm asking for. One Tomahawk. No, fuck it. Because, you know what? And I know, warmonger, you jerk, blah, 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 blah. Look at, let's be honest. How much more evidence do you fucking need that Russia is filthy and needs to be put into its place?
And
how much more?
Where would you aim it?
Oh, right up Putin's ass.
Wow.
Yeah. No, you make a point. You make a point. Because let's say Donald J. Trump, for the sake of argument, was a Russian operative and now gets elected. The Russians control him and now begins tearing apart this country from the inside to serve his Russian master. Let's say that did happen.
Right. Putin's poodle.
Is that an act of war? Absolutely. It's an act of war. You don't have to fire a shot to have an act of war.
Oh, that's the ultimate Manchurian candidate right there.
And how do you respond? What do you do to a bully? Oh, we'll hack their elections. No. You drop the gun, take the cannolis. Right in front of everybody.
I wrote a meme about that one day.
You
There's an
walk
axiom in
you
politics.
Pull the trigger. You take those little Russian Kewpie dolls. That's the closest thing they have to cannolis. And you walk the fuck out. Game over. One shot. And when they say, oh, I cannot believe the Americans. I can't believe you're trying to destroy our country from the inside. Your move. Checkmate. You should know that. You're Russian.
There's
Fuck
an
'em.
axiom in politics, and it goes like this. You match words with words and actions with actions.
Oh, no. If I was Trump, I don't care what anybody says, and you guys can all say I'm fucking crazy.
You're fucking crazy.
If I was Trump, I would absolutely, right now, because you have a 2-year investigation proven that the Russians did it, they probably can prove the length, the level in which the orders in Russia came from. I would absolutely be okay if tomorrow, like 12 high-ranking Russian officials woke up with slit throats.
Oh, they woke up dead?
Yep. Yeah. I cannot believe this would happen.
Like the 12... This is so fucking stupid. Like the 12 Russians who were indicted by Mueller.
Yeah.
Boy, that was purposeful.
But and the thing that we're forgetting is we have a media who's pissed that he didn't collude. We have a nation who's focused on what the House is going to do now. Will they keep investigating it because no. But nobody's mad at Russia. Nobody's pissed off at Russia. Look, folks, Russia's been our enemy for years.
Oh, and
don't
they
get me
will
wrong.
Not stop China.
I will absolutely own the fact that there's duality. I like watching Putin be Putin because it's fucking hysterical. Watching Putin ride shirtless on a bear through the backwoods while chasing like a gazelle with a knife in his hand is one of my favorite things in the world because he's absolutely out of his goddamn mind.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, he was fairly ripped at the time.
But let's also keep in mind what I just said. He's out of his goddamn mind. He's
Yes,
a
he
former
is.
KGB agent. He believes in communism, which he
Listen,
still acts like a communist country.
Do not mistake his thought that he wants to get the band back together.
Yes.
What's the band? The band is the USSR.
Back in the USSR. You don't know how lucky. And Dave, I am much older than you think I am. I very much get it. So, but what I'm saying is Russia is as filthy now as it's ever been. If anything, it's more filthy now than when it was the Soviet Union, because when it was the Soviet Union, they played by more rules. Even when it came to spying on us and stuff like that, there was a lot more of like, well, we don't want to cross this line because they were afraid of the nuclear retaliation. So they wouldn't cross certain lines. They wouldn't go over. And we communicated with them much better through back channel than we do now because of that nuclear threat, that nuclear, oh shit. And the Russians knew more often than not that our equipment for leveling Russia was much better than theirs.
That was called, folks, if you remember, Dave, I know that you're going to remember. I'm pretty sure, Sean, you're going to remember. Folks, do you remember MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction?
Yep.
So that if you launch...
We're launching.
We're launching too.
And as we know that Russia had most likely had the potential to be able to go mad with that. But we knew we could. And they were still an if.
There's Merv.
Yeah. There's still an if.
That's still a great phrase. I still like that.
But I say this all the time. When are we going to start focusing on the true enemy in the room here? I know the left is, we have to deal with the Trump collusion. And then was there obstruction? Because he didn't say there wasn't obstruction. But look, folks, you lost. Get the fuck over it. How about the fact that the Russians tried to... fuck up our country yet again? And why aren't we pissed about that? Why is nobody talking about that? Nobody anywhere. It's about Mueller, obstruction, Strzok, Page, blah, 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 blah. The fucking Putin and the Russians. You remember Putin? He was the one that sat with Obama, and Obama, the one who Medvedev reported to when Obama said to him, I'll have more wiggle room after the election. That wasn't collusion?
It would be much more conciliatory. I will relay the information.
That wasn't conspiracy?
To Vladimir.
I relay this information
That's on
to
video.
Vladimir. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean anything.
Well, he just meant to, what, the uranium one? Is that what he meant?
You want
was
evidence?
he talking about uranium
How about
one?
Evidence? You want evidence? That was evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. That was
That's
evidence.
evidence available on YouTube.
Yeah.
Any day of the week. Let's continue.
That matter. That is something that all Americans can and should be grateful to have confirmed. The special counsel report outlines two main efforts by the Russian government to influence the 2016 election.
Just like you said, yes.
First, the report details efforts by the Internet Research Agency, a Russian company with close ties to the Russian government, to sow social discord among American voters through disinformation and social media operations.
Facebook.
Following a thorough investigation of this disinformation campaign, the special counsel brought charges in federal court against several Russian nationals and entities for their respective roles in this scheme.
Let's go get them.
Those charges remain pending, and the individual defendants remain at large.
Because we can't get
But the
them.
special counsel found no evidence that any American, including anyone associated with the Trump campaign, conspired or coordinated with the Russian government or the IRA in this illegal scheme.
Let's play that over
American
again.
voters
Please
through
do.
disinformation and social media operations.
Yeah, this is important.
Following a thorough investigation of this disinformation campaign, the special counsel brought charges in federal court against several Russian nationals and entities for their respective roles in this scheme. Those charges remain pending, and the individual defendants remain at large. But the special counsel found no evidence that any American, including anyone associated with the Trump campaign, conspired or coordinated with the Russian government or the IRA in this illegal scheme. Indeed, as the report states,
going back to the call for, and I'm going to tie this together, maybe I'm jumping the shark here a little bit. When I hear people talk about the Electoral College and losing it, and what would that make us? A pure democracy, right? Because at that point, it's each individual vote counts. It's the popular vote versus the Electoral College.
Yeah,
blah,
mob
blah, blah,
rule.
blah, blah. Right. If that was the case right now in our country, if we did not have the Electoral College, this disinformation that A.G. Barr is talking about through social media, spreading false information, would have trickled down to the lesser intelligent and, yes, lesser informed, who could have easily, if we were a pure democracy, elected somebody on a basis of Russian lies.
And also, had Hillary Clinton been elected, would we know a fraction of what we knew now?
Nope.
And I also submit, we're going to learn. I truly think we're going to learn more about this, that as we peel the layers from the onion, we're going to get to the heart. We're going to get to the center. I'm not convinced that it's going to go up to Obama, although everyone who isn't a monkey or a moron knows that it does lead there.
You'll never be able to prove it.
But we will not have the...
As high as Valerie Jarrett.
There's circumstantial and there's direct. We will never have any direct
You'll be
evidence.
able to prove VJ.
We'll never have any direct evidence that goes up to Obama, and that is purposeful. And that is also one of the reasons, by the way, that such a concerted effort was made to make sure that the 33,000 plus emails were deleted from the Clinton servers, because I am absolutely convinced that there were communications from Clinton to Obama regarding this and other issues, to include the Clinton Foundation and Uranium One.
Yes.
It all is it's a quagmire of corruption.
Yes.
At the heart of it is Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama with adjunct players.
I will tell you right now, I think you would be able to... Well, first and foremost, this is why every politician didn't want Trump elected, because he doesn't play by the politician rules of the wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Nope.
And I think, like I said, he's going to find out where all those skeletons are and who buried them there, and that's making them shit Twinkies. Now, as far as how far it will be proven, on a hunch, without seeing all evidence, but on a hunch, I bet you could prove this to Valerie Jarrett. Legitimately, I think you could prove that she had her hands into it somehow. But would you ever get her to flip on Obama? No. But I really think that 100%. 100%. I think that.
Let me ask you this question, Sackhead Sean. From Wednesday night to Thursday morning, when this press conference occurred, do you think anyone in the various realms of opinion changed, or were they swayed massively to depart one camp and warmly embrace another camp?
Yeah. So I think that, look, you have two types of leftists. You have leftists because it feels good, and you have leftists who believe in communism. And they will sit on the same side of the fence when it comes time to pull a handle. And folks, if you know any abundance of leftists, if you know more than a handful of 5, you know who they are. You know the die-in-the-wool, hardcore, bleed red communist leftists, and the ones who is, would die for AOC right now.
We're surrounded by them.
And you know the ones who are like, oh, it just makes me feel good because I think it's nice to help those people.
Yeah, we need to.
And I don't even want to call them weak. They're almost too naive and nice to know better.
Naivety? Being naive, let me just...
Naivete?
Yeah. Naivete.
Naive.
Being naive is it's a plus in the planet system of way too many people.
Yes.
Way too many leftists are ignorant and naive purposely because they haven't been educated as well either.
Well, and a lot of it too is, and I can think of one person I know specifically who it makes them feel good because in their mind they want the government to do the right thing that they say they're going to do, which is a big government, take care of everybody. Even if they're intelligent enough to know when they sit down non-emotionally that, this probably isn't going to work. I think emotionally they live through their emotions in life. So when it comes time to make the decisions, they become emotional. And mentally lazy would follow under communism.
Oh yeah.
But
did things change though? Did it change anybody's opinion?
I think for the people who are emotional leftists, I think by and large, yes. Now they may never.
They decided to go further report. You think?
No, I think that this report will open their eyes to a lot of things.
It sang to them a little bit.
Yes, and not necessarily that they're all of a sudden going to like Trump.
Really?
But what did their party do now? And is their party... Because you have to understand, the emotional leftists never thought that anybody in control of that party would do anything ill because they're for the people.
Of course.
And now, and I'm not saying all of them, but now you have it where, oh shit, it looks like the for the people were fucking the people. And now we have a 2-year report of it. And I think there's a lot of them who are intelligent but emotional who turn around and be like, maybe I shouldn't be as emotional about this. That's not going to make them Trump supporters. But I think it will turn around and it will make them a little bit more scrutinous of their own party, which isn't a bad thing. Look, you have the hardcore, and you know what? You may even get a couple. Look, there's been hardcore Democrats who have changed. And over a couple years, they've started to see the light. And Mr. Strzok from the Walkaway Movement, prime example, right? That there are people who eventually wake up and go, this isn't right. And we have a better way if we go here. I think this will be one of those things. I don't think it'll be mass Trump hysteria in a good way of like, yay, we all love President Trump now. But I think it'll make them more scrutinous of their own party, which is good. I mean, that's not bad. Look,
no, it's not.
I tell everybody, I'm like, a couple things that you have to take as a positive from this investigation. I know I hated it, and I think it was one of the worst things happened to this country in God knows how many years.
Fucking waste of time.
But it opened up people's eyes to the reality of filthy politics and what happens when you don't play ball and why Washington lives under a different set of rules than the rest of the country. And that if you have influence and power, you can get away with more. And we saw a hint of it with the Hillary Clinton campaign and the server. And people are like, well, yeah, that is. I know plenty of Democrats who are like, oh, it's kind of hinky. Like, that probably is filthy. But a lot of them would be like, but, it's just kind of the way it is in Washington. I think this is worse than that. I think people would be like, this was fucking horrible, and it shouldn't be this way. And I think the draining of the swamp is going to continue after this. I'll tell you right now, I think all gloves are going to be off with Trump in the next couple months. I think going into the 2020 election now...
I loved his Game of Thrones meme today. Game of Thrones, by the way, hated it. But I loved the hell out of it. I shipped that bad boy in social media all over the place.
We have, 7 months? 7 months, so 19 months to the next election, right? Roughly. 19 months to the 2020 election is what we're looking at. Is my math right on that? Yeah.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. So we have 19 months.
I'm exceeding that because I can't do fucking math.
Over the next 19 months, maybe I'm wrong. I think you're going to get a name a month who's going to be fucking destroyed by the Trump administration.
I think what you're going to find, God, who said this yesterday? It might even have been Trey Gowdy has said that what you're going to see from this point on is a greater focus, logically so, on a lot of the people that led us up to this point. The point I was trying to make is that some people are just not going to be swayed.
He's
very
peanut
much.
butter and jealous.
What is there to be jealous of?
They hate us because they ain't us. Hate us because they ain't us. Haters gonna hate, and ain'ters gonna ain't.
It's true. Haters gonna hate.
And ain'ters gonna
ain't.
By the way, I think Trey Gowdy, after 2020, Trey Gowdy has a job in the Trump administration, but that's just my speculation.
Trey Gowdy he's let me down a couple of times, but he's been one of the most equanimous individuals that I've known. He sees a lot on both sides, and yet even there was a great interview, God, I wish I could pull it up, that he had with Martha McCallum tonight, where he was throwing spears left and right.
I'll tell you right now, I think part of the reason why Trey Gowdy did sometimes, like you said, let people down, I think a lot of it is Trey Gowdy knows just how far he could push before and get out as much as he could before the tides would turn against him and people would be going after him and destroying his credibility. I think he always pushed as far as he could, knowing that nobody else was going to run with him. And they never did.
No.
Very few people.
And he basically...
Chaffetz was the only one who would ever back him up on anything.
I used to love to watch Chaffetz and Trey Gowdy tear people apart.
And,
but they were fangless. They were toothless. They had no powers of arrest. Their authority was limited.
Well, and that's why Dave Milner just said, number of people who go to jail to Gowdy's grillings. Because there's nothing they can do. You have to understand, most
they
of
didn't
his
have
grillings,
the power and the authority to do exactly that.
Most of his grillings happened with an Obama-run DOJ against, and most of his grillings against people who either worked for the Obama administration or sympathetic to the Obama administration, and nothing was ever going to come out of it anyhow.
The best thing they could do is expose what they did. I'm not going to play the rest of the press conference because in 5 more minutes we will have already been on for 3 hours. But I want to play this from William Barr. Can
you share with us
2
why
minutes.
you feel a need to do that?
I love this.
Well, for the same reason we're worried about foreign influence in elections. We want to make sure that during an election, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. It's a big deal. Generation I grew up in, which was the Vietnam.
Okay, when he said spying is a big deal, you could hear the sphincters closing all around D.C.
Or a period, people were all concerned about spying on anti-war people and so forth by the government.
I remember.
And there were a lot of rules put in place
70s.
to make sure that there's an adequate basis before our law enforcement agencies get involved in political surveillance. I'm not suggesting that those rules were violated, but I think it's important to look at that. And I'm not talking about the FBI.
I think it's important to look at that, said in the public from the Attorney General, who is no Jeff Sessions.
Not necessarily, but intelligence agencies more broadly.
So you're not suggesting that.
So what did he do? He just named the intelligence agencies. He just essentially outed the CIA and the NSA as potentially being complicit.
Yes.
Logically, the logical extension lists also James Clapper and John Brennan.
No, that spying occurred.
I think spying did occur.
Yes.
Yes, I think spying did occur.
Yeah.
Yes.
We know it did. We know it did.
And once the American media maggots heard that spying occurred, oh my God, heads exploded.
Well, let me...
But the question is whether it was adequately predicated. And I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I need to explore that. I think it's my obligation.
I need to explore that. Meaning, what does that mean to you,
As
Sackett,
Attorney
Sean?
General, I want to make sure that it was done the right and legal way.
Yeah, meaning I'm going to open investigation on this.
I'm going to work on this.
Roddy wouldn't do it.
Nope.
Jeffy wouldn't do it. Let's see. Loretta wouldn't
Certainly
do
not
it.
have done it.
Eric wouldn't do it.
Speaking of which, it's so funny. You see all the leftists right now who are saying, oh, this bar, and he's just in Trump's pocket, and blah, 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 blah. Wasn't it Eric Holder who said that I have Obama's back?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, exactly.
Just wanted to make
Congress
sure.
is usually very concerned about intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies staying in their proper lane.
Okay, this is him taking the spear that she threw at him, grabbing it, and throwing it right fucking back.
Here's what he said, too, though. Making sure the intelligence agencies stay in their lane, i.e. aren't spying on Americans without just cause.
Yes, thank you.
And I want to make sure that happened. We have a lot of rules about that. And I want to say that
the underlying subtext to this is, I'm concerned about this. America should be concerned about this. Why aren't you concerned about this?
Said I'm reviewing.
Why haven't we bombed Russia yet?
I haven't set up a team yet, but I have in mind having some colleagues help me pull all this information together and let me know whether there's some areas that should be looked at.
He knows what's up.
I also want to make clear this is not launching an investigation of the FBI. Frankly,
they'll be a part of it. Maybe not the biggest part of it, but they'll be a part of it.
No, what he's saying is it's all alphabet agencies, not just the FBI.
It won't be just them. I'm going to go really big.
Extent there were any issues at the FBI, I do not view it as a problem that's endemic to the FBI. I think there was probably a failure among a group of leaders there at the upper echelon.
There was a failure of a group of leaders there of the upper echelon.
Yes.
Holy shit.
How much do you want to bet, maybe I'm wrong, that he appoints or gives special power to the Inspector General?
And the IG report is due, in another month?
But hear me out
An
on
update?
this. If you're investigating all three of those agencies, and the IG has shown to be very reliable, nonpartisan, and reliable through all of this. Remember, they're the ones who found the text messages.
Yes.
They're the ones who found emails. The IG investigators have done a lot that no other agency said they could do because they didn't want to. I believe that and I don't know, I know we have an attorney, Mamba, in the chat room, but I have to ask, can AG Barr now turn around and say, hey, Office of the Inspector General, I want you to head up this investigation independent of all alphabet agencies. You have as much authority as I can legally give you, and I don't know how much that is, and resources to conduct this investigation lawfully and legally. Because the biggest thing about the IG is the IG can't prosecute.
No, the IG has no input in terms of
prosecutorial.
It's like the IG can make observations,
right?
But the AG cannot make recommendations.
So, do you see AG Barr appointing a special counsel to the IG who can bring charges?
I'd like to think yes, but truly no. It's a grand thought.
I just think that out of all the agencies with the investigations over the last couple of years, the IG's office has proven to be the reliable source. They're the one steady hand, the smooth ship in the water. They're the only ones that have given us anything.
Let me throw this one final thought out.
Okay.
It's like the Me Too movement. Let me make this relationship. Once a particular individual or a group have discovered that it's all right, that it's somehow acceptable to disclose certain information, does that not make it easier for subsequent persons or organizations to likewise disclose? And the reason I'm saying that is I think we're going to see a bit of a tsunami because the Mueller Report acted in the exact opposite way, I believe, in which it was intended.
It's opening up so much more.
Now we opened up a door. People walked through. I think with the Mueller report, the door is being opened even wider, and more people will walk through.
I think the Mueller report's the finger in the dam. And I think that once that report came out, you've removed the finger from the dam. And the water's starting to flow through it. And what does it do? It erodes that hole bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that up until the Mueller report, that finger was wedged in pretty deep. And now, you now have the potential of the dam letting go, i.e. the swamp getting drained.
I think when
See what I did there?
I do. I think the Horowitz's report is going to come out, like I say, about another month or two.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think that'll reveal more information, and I think it will... The situation will no longer be Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to get some assistance. We've gotten it now from Mueller. It was the opposite effect that he desired.
I hope every time somebody, if we start having prosecutions and they are people who are working against the Trump administration, I don't want to call them Obama appointees, but just anybody that was working against the Trump administration illegally trying to disrupt the presidency, I hope that Trump thanks Mueller every single time one of them is indicted or convicted. If it became from his report.
Let me throw this out as well.
I would love that. By the way, I want to thank Bob Mueller today for making our country safer by making sure that so-and-so who was convicted...
Yeah, is now wearing orange jammies.
Yeah, convicted of collusion with Russia. Good job, Bob.
Yeah, I'd like to throw this out. We've got a little less than 2 years before the end of Trump's term. So either Trump has to rush with the rest of this information and try to get something going. What happens, Sackhead Sean, if Trump gets reelected in 2020?
Oh, bets are off.
And then he has an additional 4 years.
I don't think he cares.
In which to continue to conduct the revelations that we're all aware of, as in, we know where this came from, and the bodies are going to start hitting the floor.
You've let the bodies hit the floor. You brought up earlier that he's a pugilist. I don't think he cares. Look, I say this before. Trump was elected. He was already one of the most powerful men in the world, right? Legitimately. He had money, influence, power. He didn't need to become president. Some people say, oh, he did it for ego. Okay, well, sure, he's an egotistical guy. You have to be that successful. I don't care what anyone says. You have to be a little bit of a narcissist. You have to think you're that good because that's how you be that successful. Because when everyone else is telling you can't, you need to be telling yourself you can. And that's okay.
Yep.
But
it is.
Trump. Exactly. Do you think... Great song. Do you think...
And they are, I believe.
Do you think Trump cares about 2020? And my answer is, I don't think he cares as much as everyone wants him to care. I think that he would rather...
I think you're right. I think if I'm saying this right, you chime in. I think he's enjoying the experience.
Yeah.
I think to him, this is a journey. It's an experience. He's never been here before. And I think, to a great extent, you've never, ever had anyone who has acted like this and reacted like this. I think in his own little Trump way, he's digging this.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, you look at the Obama administration, even the Bush administration, right? As soon as they were elected the first time, they were already working on re-elections. And when you elect me in another 4 years, for 4 more years, you're going to get a blah, 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 blah.
On the other hand, he's already got at least $10 to $20 million
in the bank.
Banked up.
But how often have you heard him say, well, when I get reelected in 2020? I haven't heard it.
True. And the corollary of that would be, in a recent speech, Obama referred to himself at least 400 times. When Trump gives a speech, it's us, we, you, the United States.
Let me ask you this, in the most Trump way possible.
Okay.
Could you see and I know we're trying to wrap up, the 2020 election if he doesn't campaign a day. If he just goes into 2020 knowing he's going to win. And he just doesn't campaign, because if he came out and said, hey, I'd love to campaign, but you've already seen what I've done. You've seen what they've tried to do to me. You've seen what we beat. You've seen what the evil is. You've seen what the evil isn't. Look, if you want me to keep doing what I'm doing, elect me in 2020, I got to go back to work.
Let's end it this way.
And then he never argues with these Democrats, the 552 of them that are running for president.
Yeah.
He never once has to debate them, argue with them. No, I'm sorry, I'm too busy running the country.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? The heads would explode.
Oh, that's like third party, dude. Third party.
Because the media will do what they did to him for the first election. They will do all of the fundraising for him. They will do all of the media for him. They will put his name on the front of every newspaper every single day, as they have been doing since he announced that he was running for office, except just like with this and everything else that they can't pin anything on him. So all they're doing is giving him free publicity. If he gives one campaign speech and that's it, hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm just too busy. I'm trying to make America as great as I can. If you want more of that, go vote for me tomorrow. I got to go back to work.
Case in point, final case. Let's see. Trump is going to attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Oh, no. He's going to be attending a rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
The only way, and I've said this before, if all of a sudden somebody at the White House Correspondents' Dinner got like Dennis Miller to do it,
they'd never stoop so low.
And then you see Trump turn around and go, well, yeah, you know what? I think I'll go now.
White House Correspondents' Dinner? No. I've enjoyed the hell out of this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can contact me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. Thanks to Redcon One Media for carrying my show, and also to the Big Sarge. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines. Thrust, you can trust. Tiaras are, of course, by My Little Pony, always. And also I want to say thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. My effervescent thanks to Sackhead Sean for being here tonight, Dave Milner, and also to Captain ED ENOS for being here in the first hour. And thanks to everybody for being in chat. Thanks to Kona for being the brown dog in the studio
and
tonight.
And to answer the question, he and Demi, the studio cat, do not get along.
Oh, I can't imagine why. Folks, have a great weekend. See you next Tuesday. God bless, take care, be safe.
Good night.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.